Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thursday Night Telling Tales. That means at the moment it's Yellow King, one of our newer campaigns on the channel. We're entering the third episode here. We're playing, as I've already mentioned, the Yellow King, cosmic horror in 1895 Paris, at least for now. Yeah, let's get the blurb out of the way, and then I can start doing the recap and introing people. So, if you check down below the stream, whether you're on YouTube or Twitch, you'll find a whole bunch of links. There'll be links to our social media, to our Discord, to our Patreon, to our merch store, all the things you might expect from a channel such as ours. We run a number of campaigns on a weekly basis. There is Monday, where we're currently alternating between We Deal in Lead and Warhammer. Both of those will reach their finale over the coming weeks. And then at the end of July, you'll have even more cosmic horror when Johnny arrives with a long-form Call of Cthulhu campaign. Very long form, because he's going to be running Masks of Nyarlathotep. Amazing stuff, and terrifying, both on like a it's horror level and also on a running a masks campaign kind of level, which I'm sure Johnny is approaching with equal amounts of excitement and dread. Wednesdays is Symbaroum, our longest running campaign, still going with the Throne of Thorns. And Thursday is fortnightly Yellow King. And as of next week, we'll also be airing our first recorded series. I think it's our first recorded thing. We'll be streaming it, but it will also be recorded. Does that make sense? So streaming it, but not live. And that's going to be Delta Green. And that's a mini series of even more cosmic horror. We're basically just a cosmic horror channel now. Just deal with that, I suppose. We also run one-shots on a semi-regular basis. The next one is going to be on Saturday, the 20th of July, I believe. And we're going to be revisiting the wonderful Cyborg from Stockholm Cartel. So tune in for that. And I think that's all the blurb out of the way. So with that in mind, I'm going to start adding people onto the stream, and we'll go through a recap of stuff. We've got Inga and John and Steve and Sam and Holly and Alex. Alex is looking a bit weird today, but don't worry about it. He is saving you from the cosmic horror of watching him eat, so that's fine. Okay, let's talk about what happened last week. Yellow King is very episodic, so we don't necessarily need to think, at least right now, about kind of a big overarching meta plot. One will emerge, but we're only really talking about what happened last week. And our Parisian students last time embarked on another investigation. This one following kind of like a sort of clues and weird snippets of almost kind of like mimetic information that seem to be traveling around Paris in things like black stars and lakes below the earth and various odd cosmic horror-y things, some of which were developed through automatic writing or writing from some other being that Howie found in his journal, and it led them over time through the kind of like culture of Paris, through its salons and its composers and its occultists, to the reservoir beneath the Palace Garnier, the opera house, where they encountered a horribly burned corpse that may or may not have been using charcoal to daub the ceiling with black stars and to daub the wall with the term "Il arrive," he is coming. Yeah, so all pretty happy, upbeat stuff as usual. There we go. So let's walk through our group one by one. We'll just kind of very lightly introduce the character. We'll talk about any, I've forgotten the Yellow King term for XP already. We'll talk about any of those points that have been improvement points, something like that have been spent. And we'll also talk about how sort of brain melted by the previous events they are and anything that's going on with them. And as usual, I like to roll to see who ends up going first. And it's going to be John. John plays Blaise Perret, our resident portrait artist / student. Oh my God, leaping cat. The cat, for regular viewers will know, the cat has been mental this week, so I do not know what's going on with that, but expect that to continue, he says, as he starts to feel what might be blood run down his back. So, John, tell us about Blaze, goings on in your head, improvement points,
etc. So Blaze has been feeling a little bit guilty about how the fact that all of his friends went on a dangerous adventure and half of them like fell into an underground lake without him. He's been keeping a bit of a close eye on Howie, because Howie sort of turned up with some information that Howie doesn't seem to want to volunteer where he got this information from. I think Blaze is getting a little bit worried about him. He's been reading the symbolism book that he bought last week, and I think enjoying it very much, but I don't know how much he's really taking in. But he's also been practicing his sculpturing, because he's kind of hoping that this terrible curse that has afflicted him, where he might accidentally kill people by drawing them, might only affect two-dimensional rendering, and that maybe sculpting people is fine.
Yeah, it does follow that if you're killing people by rendering them in 2 dimensions, then rendering them in 3 dimensions is definitely fine and won't be worse.
I mean, it's currently fine, but that might just be because Blaze isn't very good at sculpture yet.
Sure. So in other words, you bought sculpture?
Yes.
As an investigative ability. Right, there we go. Next, let's have Sam. Sam with Alex Rojas, our resident poet. Sam, tell us of improvement points and mental state.
Improvement points, am I right in thinking it's 1 for a point, 2 for an ability?
I mean, they're all abilities, but yes, it's 2 points for a completely new investigative ability, and it's 1 point to have an extra point in the general ability pool. Yeah.
Okay. I think Alex is going to spend 1 point to get a slightly better sneaking. Feels like sneaking is going to be helpful, and Alex is not very good at it. But I haven't decided what I want to do with my other point yet. I might save it up and buy something. In terms of mental state, I think quite bad. This one was quite rough. Yeah, didn't fall in the water, but also probably saw the reactions to people falling in the water, and it's almost like not knowing quite what happened to the people who fell in the water is maybe just as bad.
Yeah, sure.
It's unpleasant. It's been unpleasant. I also think that a little bit of this like suspicion about Laura is maybe getting, and like the book that she might or might not have, and that she's been a bit off, could get to Alex. And like, you know, the one thing he really needs a bit of trust in is his companions, and that is also not quite there, and it's bad. It's going bad.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's a fair assessment. Okay, then next up, let's have Inga with Howie.
Yeah, Howie's not feeling great, being one of the fallen in the water lots. Yeah, I think Howie was like quite shaken by the events of the last episode. And I think he's been trying to I think going back in circles a little bit from what Radon had said about trying to push out the, you know, thinking about these images, and like that was the thing he needed to do, and he really encouraged Howie not to dwell on those and to try and put them out of his mind. But that having that struggle of like, the more he's thinking about trying to put it out of his mind, he's just still thinking about it, and it's becoming a bit of a vicious circle of like actively trying not to think about the things, so he's just thinking about it, and it's not really quite working. I think he's probably writing a bit less, actually. Like I think this was the first time when the writings that he's seen appear in his book have led to something this weird and scary rather than something kind of interesting to investigate. So I think he's been trying to distract himself with more reading than writing. And I've got put some points into picking up military history. So he's been picking up some military history books, brushing up on some of those that he's brought with him, and doing a bit of reading up there.
kind of something kind of that feels a bit far away from something a bit distracting.
Yeah, a bit far away, a bit like strategic, and a bit more kind of straightforward and grounded somehow. But yeah, I think with limited success and the like true distraction, I think that stuff is still swirling around his head a bit.
Absolutely. Okay, Steve, why don't you talk about how our resident muse is doing?
Sure. Yeah, so Mark, I think, has probably spent the last week or so. So he's obviously concerned about Howie and Theodore, and is probably channeling his sort of concerns into the fact that they perhaps were almost drowned, rather than the weird things in the water and the dark stars. On just sort of more focus on, are Howie and Theodore okay? That sort of thing. I think he'll still be sketching. They'll be fairly perfunctory. He is probably spending a bit of time trying to find, like, there must have been other entrances to that place. It was probably some engineer students found a way in, and they've crafted something that they could get up and they could. It's some stunt. Stunt.
There must be a rational explanation for this. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go with Holly next. Marie, our landscape painter. And don't be alarmed by the fact I'm turning my cam off. It's because, like last night, I'm going to have to evict the cat. The cat is now getting behind things and climbing. The cat is there in that dark crevice on the shelf. So, yeah, I'll be a moment. Everyone vamp if I'm not back by the time Holly's gone.
Yes, so Marie, as Matt said, is a landscape painter, and she was mostly disturbed by the actual scrawled writing on the walls, because now she's seen one dead body. It's like, what's another dead body, really? And like Howie and Theodore falling into the water, they just got scared and they're imagining things now. What's really interesting is this writing on the wall. So she has been painting some little, like, representations of the underground lake that we went to, with the writing on the wall to kind of try and understand it a little bit more. I've been kind of sketching down things, maybe doing a little bit of a painting looking into the water, and like the albino catfish that were there. Yeah, probably is getting a little bit too into it. If anyone is paying attention to that, probably getting a little bit too into it. Yeah, so that's where she's at the moment.
What perfect timing. Although it does mean I don't know where Marie is at the moment, but it's fine. I'm the GM. I don't need to know about things like your character's feelings. That's not any of my concern. Okay, Alex. And finally, how about Theo? How's Theo doing? Probably just fine.
He's just fine. Yeah, no. Theo obviously pretty rattled. I think Theodore, after, well, we discussed this very briefly before the stream, but the fact that in the last session, the sensation of there being something tugging or gripping on his leg while in the water did feel very much more like a human hand and less like, for example, a fish, would be a fact that he has kept to himself, definitely. And I think not only is he not volunteering that sort of disturbing sensation, but also I think would probably be doubling down mentally on on this notion of the suggestibility of the human mind and all of these things, and he was trying to convince himself after the fact that, of course, he was just spooked. He'd just seen a body, and all of this stuff. So while emotionally rattled, he's sort of buttressing his mental sort of walls, I suppose, with the only mechanism that he has available, which is appeals to rationalism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to? Because I think, after the first couple of people, we forgot to talk about improvement points. Does anyone want to volunteer anything that they've done? Because I know a couple of other people have.
Yeah, Marie has picked up Steel, which is basically the Yellow King equivalent of giving the Paddington-style hard stare to someone.
Yeah, it's the intimidation social thing. Yeah.
That's such a heartwarming way to describe it.
Yeah. Anyone else with any improvement point spend?
Well, I'll mention that the aforementioned buttressing would take the form of I've put a point into composure, and I think also maybe haplessly falling out of a boat impressed upon Theo how horribly out of shape he is, and he's been trying to sort of take his morning constitutionals and such like.
An extra point of athletics, is that translating into? Yeah. And I think Steve already mentioned. Was it Steve? Steve mentioned in the chat composure and sense trouble, right? Yeah. That makes sense. Cool. All right then. There we go. Let's get rolling, and we're going to start with Alex Rojas. Alex Rojas specifically arriving at Le Vaugras, the cafe where you spend a lot of your time eating, drinking, carousing, socializing. It is a slightly blustery spring morning, and you're heading here to meet with everyone except those of you who are typically in kind of more art and painting focused classes. So Blaze will not be there. Marie will not be there. Laura will presumably not be there, although she's been kind of spending less and less time socializing recently anyway. Mark, it's up to you whether you're there or not, because I know you kind of float in and out of that scene.
I think Mark will still be taking the classes. So yeah.
Fair enough. In that case, maybe you're only expecting to see Theo and Howie there, and presumably Hildred, who seems to always be there. Outside of the cafe, a morning drunk regales his similarly drunken paramour with a poem at very high volume. You catch the lines, "In beauty's light you glide along, your eyes like the star of eve, and sweet your voice as seraph's song," before the closing door and the increasing slur in his voice make the rest inaudible. You pause for a moment to think, because I know I don't have to ask you if you have poetry. You are the poet. It's by Coleridge, but you forget the name. And I should... I guess I haven't exactly been introducing mechanics, but I've been getting harsher on mechanics as we go through, right? And the two things I'm going to be harsher on mechanic-wise today is you're going to start getting the investigative abilities you didn't have before. We've already bought them all, so that's all fine. But here's a thing that I'm going to start doing in this session. I am not going to tell you when you can achieve something more with a push. You have got to volunteer that a push is happening. So here's and I will give you this here as a prime example that I have something written down that you can push for, but this is the last time that's going to get mentioned.
Now I feel like it'd be rude not to push.
Sure. Well, mark yourself as a push. You use a push with poetry. The poem is called Genevieve. Okay.
Are these people that I recognize hanging around here a lot?
Yeah. You've seen them before, typically drunk. So, not remarkable, but there we go. You enter into the cafe, and as you would expect, you see Howie and Theo at a table together. Two people who I imagine spend quite a bit of time, probably not exactly arguing, with each other, but perhaps slightly at odds. Hildred is also sat with them, looking a little bit disconsolate and not particularly participating in the conversation.
Might as well go over and, if needed, break up the tension.
What are Howie and Theo arguing about, or debating? I'd like to know.
That's a tricky one, actually. I can imagine it being some incredibly sort of vapid Anglo-American specific thing. You know,
this is why the French army has always been historically more successful than the English. And there's like a whole debate about that, maybe.
that could work.
The historical merits of this great conflict throughout history, maybe. Something along those lines. Something like completely like banal,
that would fit in with your military history.
Exactly.
Stuff. Yeah. No, that sounds great. Okay, Alex, get in the middle of that then.
Oh, I'm glad to see we're having a fun morning already. How's it going?
Oh, just schooling Teddy here on a few things. The usual.
Yes, apparently I'm being educated once more by our fine American friend. Though I have to say, it is Theodore.
Sure, of course. My mistake. How you doing, Alex?
Yeah, not too bad. Bit of poetry outside. Nice way to start the morning. Although, not the cleanest rendition I've ever heard, but I guess that's what I should expect around here.
One of yours again? You found some more fans?
So maybe just a fraction better than me, college, but you know, I'll get there. I'm sure I'll get there.
But you'll get to Coleridge.
Yeah. Soon, I'm sure.
All right, well, let's get some more drinks in and everything then, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like we need it in here.
Hildred gladly agrees. He seems to be trying to sort of nurse a hangover with the hair of the dog. And we will leave them there morning drinking at Le Vergras. And we will pick up in actually not in the classroom or the kind of the workshop of the school, but instead in the office of Jean-Léon Jerome, who we have met before, but is the principal professor and instructor of the painters of our group. Notably, in the office with him are Blaise and Marie, but not Mark. For perhaps reasons that will be made apparent. He's invited you in after the workshop, encouraged you to sit down. Well, it has to be said that you performed admirably in the task granted to you by the school, and a damn good thing. The thought of these undiscovered treasures going off to some unscrupulous dealer is too much to bear. And never let it be said that Jerome does not come through on the bargains he makes. So, selection for the Nationale begins soon, and I have endeavored to make sure that you are among the artists guaranteed for consideration.
Well, we're most grateful, of course. Thank you very much.
The Nationale is the most prestigious salon in Paris, although it has only been so for the last 5 years, when it was instituted by a group of... Have you both got art history?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Well, then this is just Marie's information. Blaise, you could definitely know that the salon is the most prestigious, but basically there was another Parisian salon that had been dominant for literally centuries, and then 5 years ago a group of Parisian artists basically disagreed with the committee for its some decisions they made, and set up a new one called the Nationale, and now it's the biggest. And Jerome is one of the people who set it up. So there we go. He nods and says, ensure that your finest works, no more than 5 apiece, no more, are brought to the school tomorrow for consideration. I cannot assure you of a selection, but I am confident that your works are largely sufficient to warrant a place in the display for younger artists and students.
Tomorrow, okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Really, we are incredibly grateful, aren't we, Blaze?
We yes, definitely. Thank you, Monsieur.
Of course. It was a bargain well struck. Now, get about your business and be sure that what you bring your finest efforts. No more than 5.
Will do. Will do. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you are kind of cast out of the office. I could imagine that Mark is perhaps waiting for you.
Yes, I'll be loitering around
Yeah.
somewhere nearby.
Yeah, you were not invited. And notably, Laura was not at the workshop.
Well, what news?
We have, well, hasn't been confirmed yet, but we're to bring 5 pieces of our finest art tomorrow in the hope that they are selected to be presented at the Nationale, which is huge. That's, yeah. I don't know what I'm going to bring.
Terrifying. Most of my big works were commissions, which means I need to go and contact all of the people who currently have my paintings in their sitting rooms and ask if I can borrow it for an unspecified amount of time. That's terrifying.
Would you
God.
like help writing letters?
This is wonderful character building, but I would like to emphasize that if you're about to do that for the rest of the day, you're going to miss the session.
Yeah, no, I'm not actually going to do it.
Okay.
No,
Yeah,
I think I can. I think I can contact them. I can.
Are there any in the city that you can just quickly?
I mean, yeah, you
Make
need
a
the
letter
paintings
into-
tomorrow, so
Yeah.
unless they're in Paris, you've got no chance.
They are. 3 of them are at my parents' house. I can pick those up at any point.
Okay, I mean that seems to fix most of your problem.
Jerome also let you know that the paintings that you needed to bring the paintings to the school for 9:30.
Okay. Okay.
Well, that's fantastic news. If I can help either of you to make arrangements, then count on me. I'd be delighted to assist.
Well, thank you very much for the offer of the help. That's fantastic. What do we say we go have a little drink to celebrate? You can buy.
Sounds like I do, of course. Yes, that sounds like an excellent idea. only a little, of course. We mustn't lose sight of.
Oh no, we've got plenty to be investigating.
Yes. Come on then, we'll meet up with the others.
Yeah.
Okay. You full of enthusiasm for the prospective salon ahead of you. You depart from the school and are just kind of walking out of the courtyard onto the street when a voice kind of behind you by the gates, lurking just outside, calls out, excuse me, Madame Rouenet? You are Madame Rouenet, no?
Yes, I am. Can I ask why you want me?
You find yourself confronted by a tallish man who looks to be of extraction, perhaps of the nation of Martinique. A lot of people who come to Martinique to study have a very singular kind of like fashion sense. which this gentleman is evoking. He is wearing a kind of like reddish brown velvet suit, quite striking. In fact, many of the students who come from Martinique, often to study medicine, are famed in Paris as sartoriously resplendent fixtures of its nightlife, and are swarmed by young women whenever they arrive at a ball or a dance hall. He has sort of slightly expansive curly hair. He's really quite handsome, and he reaches his hand out to you to shake it, which is, even in Belle Epoque Paris, is slightly not. I mean, if you were older, you would consider it very forward.
Yes, it's vaguely presumptuous. Yeah. I mean,
but perhaps you like that. You are Bohemian.
Exactly. She's game. She'll like offer her hand.
It is good to meet you. I'm delighted to make your acquaintance. My name is Julien Alert. I represent Keen & Company. We are an international firm specializing in the tracing of lost persons. May I take up some of your time? I am very happy to purchase lunch for yourself and your friends at a nearby cafe of your choice.
Well, yes, we were just on our way to go have a little drink with some friends. Would you care to accompany? And we can dine and chat about this missing person.
Of course. Lead on.
Okay, yeah, we head to the cafe, I guess, with this new person. Can you remind me of the name?
Julien.
Julien.
He makes very pleasant, kind of light conversation as you're all walking there. The typical things, the weather, superficial politics, kind of like Parisian infrastructure, all the things you might expect, and happily strides in with you. I'm imagining everyone can hear the cat there. Yeah, the door is closed. This is just what happens. And you stride into the cafe together. Obviously, you see your friends. He immediately goes over and kind of looks at the menu and orders some kind of shared food for everyone, and sits down happily at it and waits for it to arrive, and carries on with that small talk until the food arrives, unless pressed in some way. He will already also, for everyone here, he has completed the same introduction again about who he is. Is anyone kind of like pushing him, or are you happy to wait until the food arrives as well?
I mean, Marie's interested about what is going on here for sure. So if the conversation just starts sort of tailing off to like the weather or whatever, then she'll probably go, so this Keen & Company that you work for, you said it was specializing in the location of missing and deceased persons?
Of course. I'm sorry, this fish is superb. Unexpectedly superb.
It's an excellent establishment.
Well, I flatter myself as something of a gourmet of the seas. My young years in Martinique were replete with the finest seafood, and this is excellent. Perhaps Paris excellent is not Martinique excellent, but one has to have appropriate expectations. How was your food?
Yes, it's quite excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you so much for buying it.
My pleasure. And you asked me about. Yes, I do not wish to waste a further moment of your time. I am currently in the employ of the Saint-Geneviève Library, who have contacted me to locate one of their more junior librarians, a student as well, technically, like yourselves. She is engaged in a project to restore certain missing pieces of their collection by various means, mostly mercantile, but also requiring a great deal of research. But she sadly has not been seen for some weeks now. Her name was Clotilde Roudier. I don't suppose you've heard of her or seen her. A bookish young lady by all accounts, and notably small and slender in size.
No, I'm afraid I haven't. I don't know about the rest of my compatriots.
He looks across at all of you with interest. He goes without saying, no. That is unfortunate. It was a long shot. But the reason I'm speaking to you, Madame Rune, as well as the rest of you, I suspect, is because of a slight coincidence. I have tracked her last known whereabouts to the Hôpital Cochin, or more specifically to the tunnels below the Hôpital Cochin. They are known as the Capuchin Quarries. Are you familiar? Who has history? Okay. Howie, the Capuchin Quarries are a set of limestone quarries beneath Paris that monks, hence the name, and various other craftspeople made use of, mostly from the medieval era onwards. But they form a non-insignificant part of, like, under Paris, right? If that's what we're going to call it, that sort of area. Like, obviously, like the, under the Palais Garnier does as well, and various other places you've been.
Great, underground again. Yeah.
Again, indeed. Paris has all kinds of underground peculiarities, of which these, as you know, are one. A contact of mine at the Hôpital Saint-Louis mentioned there was a disappearance and underground goings-on there a month or so ago, and gave me your name as someone who might be familiar with what happened. Again, a long shot. And of course, I should emphasize that as yet there is nothing actively linking you to the disappearance of poor Miss Rudier.
Yes, I mean, it sounds quite horrible, really, especially if she's been missing for some weeks. Do you happen to know what she was last seen doing in terms of, like, the particular pieces that she was trying to track down or investigate?
I sadly do not know the specifics of investigations just yet, but as I say, her last known whereabouts to me are these quarries below the hospital. This case that you were involved in, could you give me a little bit of detail about it? You don't have to sum up that Georges Villiers.
But I mean, just for clarity here, you're not accusing my friend here of being involved in some way in this girl's disappearance.
As I say, at the moment, I have absolutely no reason to suspect that.
Be careful, Marie.
Oh, don't worry, Howie. I can handle myself. Yes, so the case that we were looking at, we entered rather accidentally. We were there at the hospital to look at some recently discovered paintings in an old room that had been sealed off. And we later discovered that we were not the first to come across these paintings. An old employee of the hospital had found the room and had seemingly got mixed up in some rather strange business. So we tried to track him down, mostly in order to see if we could recover any more information about the paintings. Alas, when we found him, he'd passed away in an old warehouse. It was rather dank and horrid, actually.
That does sound both peculiar and fascinating and unfortunate.
Yes,
I very much hope my own investigations end more happily. I confess I am predisposed to pessimism based on writings in a notebook of Ms. Rudier's that were passed to me. They make for bleak, obsessive reading. L'Étoile Noire and Roy de Lambeau. Page after page of fanatical and academic conjecture concerning Saint-Geneviève and various religious figures from the history of Paris. It is unnerving. I don't know how everyone's French is. L'Étoile Noire means black stars, and Le Roy Lambeau means a king in rags. Who has assess honesty and who has demimonde?
I have assess honesty.
Demimund.
Okay. I'm going to give you both this. Julien is absolutely mentioning these things in order to gauge your reaction. He's quite carefully watching the facial reactions of everyone around the table. Who is...
Howie is probably giving something away on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's trying to put on a
Same
brave
with
face,
Marie.
not just letting it totally, but it's definitely clear.
Marie's definitely interested more when those terms come up.
I think Mark would probably subconsciously turn to look at Howie. But the étoile is the trigger there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I suspect Theodore would simply involuntarily wince slightly, honestly.
Blaze and Alex, you notice Julien's like eyes passing over the group and lingering slightly on Theodore and Howie. And he says, well, it sounds as though our cases may be intertwined or at least carry some common peculiar theme. He sort of looks out of the window in a moment of pondering thought, pursing his lips as an old-fashioned carriage rolls past. I have a similarly peculiar proposal. Would you, Madame Rouenet, and your friends be open to accompanying me to the Hôpital Cochin? Take a look at these tunnels. It was the last place I can trace Pleur Clotilde to. And if there is any connection with Monsieur Voulet, then perhaps your insights could prove extremely useful.
I mean, obviously, we would be happy to be of help to the investigation. We are quite busy, though. So, is there any sort of anything that you can offer to make sure that this is worth our time?
I'm afraid I don't have any payment to offer. No.
Well, I'm certain that something will come up that is suitably of note to make it worth it. What do you think? I'm going to turn to the rest of the group and ask whether they think that we should go into the tunnels.
You said that he dresses in a quite distinctive Martinique way.
Yeah.
Would fashion as a skill, could I get any more insight than...
He's dressed very fashionably. But like it was information I kind of like gave to everyone already, I guess. I no, there's nothing specific about the way he's dressing. If you're like this doesn't actually occur to Blaze, because no way for Blaze to know. But it is a fashion that many Parisians will take up over the next few years. Most notably and prominently, your old pal Eric Satie, who dumped the priest look and went with the velvet hipster look instead.
That's probably for the best for him.
I don't know if the skill officialdom would apply to this in any way. But regardless, I think Theodore would chime in and say, look, respectfully, while I appreciate that you've come to us with this, don't you think this is perhaps a matter for the police? If you have a lead of this sort?
I'm afraid if the police were interested, then I would not have been hired. Sadly, in our modern times, and I do hope that this is something that improves, unless proof of a crime has been committed, there is no investigation. Not unless the families of a loved one can afford it, and in this case, they cannot. However, the library was dedicated enough to warrant some payment towards the company I work for.
I see.
I feel like things keep coming up. This isn't going away, you know? Maybe we do have to just see it right through.
I agree, Howie. I think that we should at least see what's down there, and see if we can assist Julien in his work.
Wonderful. That is a most agreeable decision. I have some errands to perform.
Do you have her notebooks? You said there were some writings in there. Do you have those? Could we see those?
I do not have them on me. I do consider them to be perhaps evidence. Let us go see the tunnels and then we can talk about the notebook. I have some errands to perform in the next few hours, but perhaps we could meet at the hospital at 5. I have already secured access to the quarries.
That sounds most agreeable. As I said, we are all busy as well, so that gives us time to run a few errands of our own.
Of course. He finishes up his coffee, stands up, and nods and smiles to you all before walking out of the door.
Well, that was odd.
As he stands up,
Mhm.
can I say, Monsieur, I don't know if it's relevant, but if this is linked to Monsieur Roulier, there may be some rather intimidating looking, well, Italians that be careful.
Of course, and I appreciate the warning. Although I would like more details at 5.
Of course.
He leaves, and I believe Howie was about to say something.
Yeah, definitely. Like once he's like not just out of earshot, but out the door, kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I think we're thinking like Howie has not really opened up his notebook since the events of the last episode, but he has kept it like very firmly on him, like not wanting to keep it out of his sight. And so I think he will pull out his notebook and say, "Look, you guys are going to think this." Look, and I flip open the page to where the last entry was, with the writing that he didn't recognize from the last session. Let's see. I didn't write this. I know that sounds completely crazy. This is my book. Nobody else has ever. You are the first people to see what's in this notebook other than me. I don't remember writing this. This is not my hand. This is. If there's something in that girl's notebook, this is. I know that sounds crazy. There's something.
It definitely does sound odd, Howie. Are you certain you weren't partaking the night before and maybe forgot about some scrawled writing?
I'm not going to pretend I wasn't drinking that night, but it's not the first time I've had something like this. And it predates before I picked up the booze, and it's before my time in Paris even. But I don't know. Like I've heard all these crazy stories about like automatic writing, or when people go in a bit of a trance about when they're in the flow or whatever. But this isn't my hand even. Like I don't recognize this as me. This is like this name when we went to go find Edmond Bailey before. Like I didn't know that guy. I didn't know that name. It didn't come from my brain. That wasn't in my head. Not that I know of. If it was somewhere deep down. I know this. I'm sorry. I know this sounds crazy. It's probably one of those things. But
it's not just you. The other mentions of black stars, of the drawings below the opera house. It's not just It's not just
I
us. It's not just you.
No, I've not been down there before. I didn't know that was there. I didn't know what we were going to find. And the other guys, they were saying that, it feels like it's spreading. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like it's a disease. Like people keep talking about it, it keeps spreading. This whole thing is just going around. I don't know. I can't get it. I can't get it out of my head. It's just there. It's going.
You haven't had any other missing periods of time or any headaches, blurred vision, dizziness?
No, nothing like that. Nothing unusual. I'm healthy as anything. I'm strong as a horse.
I mean, perhaps, Mr. Drummond, you ought to see a doctor. I mean, perhaps you're
I'm healthy. I told you.
Yes, but very healthy people can sleepwalk. I mean, and look, all these rumors spreading about. It's little wonder it's affecting all sorts of people. I mean, let's not get carried away.
And Howie, sometimes someone can feel perfectly healthy and then have something just under the surface.
Do you know what? I've made too big a deal of this. It is probably just I got drunk one night. I don't know. That's all it is. It doesn't matter. It's fine. And I'll put the notebook away.
Don't discount it completely for now. It's worth still thinking about. I think it's worth thinking about.
I'll just slowly push the drink that I have, the alcoholic drink I have in the morning, just slightly further away from me at the table and look at it askew.
Hildred has kind of like followed the conversation with wide eyes and is just kind of like shaking his head a little, but hasn't kind of like contributed anything particularly. Do we feel like the conversation wraps up there and we can go about our business for the afternoon and then?
Well, yeah, Marie's probably going to go. Well,
right. Yeah.
All that aside, Blaze and I have some news. We hopefully, nothing's confirmed yet, but we hopefully are going to end up having our works displayed at the Nationale. We need to bring 5 pieces to the school tomorrow morning, so we had best go start selecting them, I think, Blaze.
Yes, that will probably take a while, won't it?
That's
yes.
great, you guys. Hey, that's amazing. Well done.
Thank you. I'm rather shocked, but also quite pleased.
Well, I mean, so congratulations. Obviously, just to bring this back somewhat to the matter at hand. Am I the only one slightly trepidatious about going along with this fellow we don't know underground once again? I hate to underscore the obvious, but at this point we have discovered not one but 2 bodies. Only one of which I'm aware of having been reported, and are we not perhaps getting a bit in over our heads here, literally?
Well, if it's any consolation, I suspect these tunnels will be dry.
Oh, good.
Hildred kind of leans in and says, "Are you all right, Theodore? You're sweating."
I mean, look, I'm fine, but I just think we should be careful. That's all. I mean,
we'll be quite careful in the tunnels, Theodore. You don't need to worry.
I'm not so much worried about. No amount of caution will change what we find, and well, not to be callous, but it seems like we're well on track to find a 3rd corpse.
There's someone to be found. I think it's better that they are found than they're left there on their own.
Well, I quite agree, but so long as should the police eventually become involved, well, it doesn't look good for us, does it?
Well, there are more of us than there are of. We can act as witnesses for each other. I understand your concern, but I don't think it's enough to stop us from.
The gang of alleged murderers all acting as each other's witnesses. How thoroughly compelling. I mean,
Theodore, police will listen to what could they? We haven't even. I think you're getting ahead of yourself. I think perhaps the event last time has shaken you somewhat. It's really the best thing to do is get back on the horse, Theodore. You shouldn't fritter your life away being scared of everything that you haven't seen.
Well, I'm quite scared of what I have seen as well, if I'm honest with you. But fair enough, I take your point.
I think I agree with Theodore here. I wouldn't trust the police to side with us quite so easily, and besides, I don't quite understand why we're getting involved. But I mean, this man Julien seems to be getting paid and has offered nothing to us. But
that may be.
I don't think the police
surely
seem that
we want
interested.
to investigate further.
Yeah, I don't know why we're so worried about the police. They're not even involved. They don't seem to care about any of this stuff. But like this stuff just keeps coming at us still. Like it's not going away. Like I've been trying to put this stuff out of my head, and here comes some guy walking into the cafe saying, "Hey, you guys might be connected to this thing." Wasn't even thinking about it before, and then boom, there's some words in my books. Like it just, if we want to get rid of this thing, I don't think we can just avoid it.
I think we have to get to the bottom of it.
I understand, and I too would like answers. So, very well.
And on that point, I think with the best will in the world, we probably have to answer the call to adventure an hour into the stream. Wonderful character stuff. Don't get me wrong. So over the course of the afternoon, obviously, everyone can complete any activities they want, but specifically, I feel like Marie and Blaze need to select their pieces. We don't need to worry what those are just yet. We'll talk about that later, and deliver them to the school in time to go in there the next morning and attend the selection. Is there anything else of specific note that anyone wants to achieve before 5? Cool. Okay. In that case, you all arrive together at the Hôpital Cochin. It's in Montparnasse, which is to the south of the Seine. I feel you've probably been there at some point before. It eventually became a very well-known cultural centre of Paris, but that is decades off at this point. It is not particularly interesting at this point in time, but this Hôpital is there. I have a little drawing of the front of it. It is generally unremarkable. The Hôpital Saint-Louis wasn't exactly upmarket. The Hôpital Cochin is way further down market than Saint-Louis. It is definitely a place mostly where the poor of Paris go when they are afflicted. You arrive at the front of it at 5 o'clock. It is starting to sort of grow, not dark, but the sky is certainly less bright than it was at noon. Julien waits outside the main doors of the hospital, a placid expression on his face, despite a brief spring shower having left him damp in his well-tailored suit.
You're here already, Julien. That's excellent.
I like to stay on time. Madame Rouenet, your companions, your friends, welcome. Shall we step inside? I have our access arranged already.
Of course, lead on.
Julien nods and leads you through to the lobby, where a grim-faced porter seems to be waiting for you. The porter, in turn, silently leads you through various corridors, most of which are notably less clean and well-maintained than the Saint-Louis. At one point, you pass a series of wooden doors from behind which is coming a great deal of noise of pain and anguish. In particular, one voice can be heard agonizingly repeating "Pourquoi?" over and over again until the porter takes you far enough away. He notices your looks of discomfort and confusion and shrugs wearily. "Syphilis," he grunts. After several minutes, you arrive at an open doorway that has what looks to be a long set of steps leading down. He grunts again and gestures towards the door. Julien shakes his hand and the porter walks off. Sam, you have demi-monde, right? Yeah, Julien definitely palmed him some money.
Okay.
Julien sort of gestures at the stairs and says, "Would you like me to go first, or does someone else want that pleasure?"
It's all yours.
He nods and he has kind of a bag slung over his shoulder. And as he starts descending the steps, he gets out an oil lamp, which he ignites as he walks down the steps. Everyone else accompanying him, going after him. Yeah.
I might just veer towards Theodore, like subconscious, like even unconsciously.
Sure. The steps down, it's quite narrow. You definitely have to go in a single file, and they're quite long as well. Any of you counting will register over 100 steps before you reach down below. And I would like to share an image of what you find down there. There we go. A slightly low gallery opens up in front of you, a heavily pitted and slightly sagging roof held up by tiered pillars. Scattered around this first chamber are small brick structures, some of them akin to benches and others to sarcophagi. Everything is made up of a slightly sort of off-white yellowish limestone, and the air is close and mild in temperature. No noise can be heard from the steps up behind you as you stand 20 meters below the Hôpital and the Paris streets. This initial gallery is lit by hung lanterns on the walls, but you can see several dark passageways spreading out ahead of you. There is no change in air from them. It is still and utterly silent.
Matt, question. I was the one who recognized this with their sort of history ability. I didn't push at the time, but like being here now and seeing it, can I push on history knowledge of this place?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So there is nothing kind of specific and grand to know about the quarries. Like there's no like horrible historical incident or something like that. Paris as a whole is absolutely riddled with these, largely because Paris is built on a bedrock of limestone. It's specifically called, I believe, like literally the strata layer that all this limestone makes up is known as the Lutetian layer, which is named after Lutetia, which was the Roman name for the settlement that became Paris. And if you go to Paris even now, you will see that a great many of the buildings are built with this sort of yellowish, orangish limestone, and it all comes from the hills around the city and the quarries underneath the city. And they were built from the medieval period through to like the 1700s, operated by monks, by craftsmen, by city officials, all sorts of stuff. And it forms this kind of like layer of tunnels that are all the way through underneath the city. It's the reason why those tunnels exist. Things like the catacombs, for instance. The catacombs they weren't built to be catacombs. They were built to be quarries. And then they became catacombs later for various reasons, mostly to do with lots and lots of people dying and the city being rebuilt due to that over the course of the previous 100 years from where you are, really. Yeah. Is that enough push information, unless there's something specific you want to ask?
No, there wasn't anything specific. Like, I guess just like even if it sense of the scale, like you say, it just kind of goes like everywhere. And if there was any other kind of purpose, I think you've touched on all this kind of stuff. So yeah,
there's kind of humdrum reasons for this terrifying place to exist.
A little bit of extra trivia outside the game as well. The limestone that we're talking about was what they made Notre Dame out of.
Yes, absolutely. And
that's where they got the stone.
Most big Parisian buildings are made out of this stuff. So, yeah, there we go. You kind of stand around getting your bearings. Obviously, a little extra light is displayed by Julien's lamp. And he kind of looks around and says, well, we should certainly stay as a group, no? I am perhaps the tallest, so maybe I take up the rear position with my reliable lantern. I have extra oil. I also have a firearm, should we encounter someone up to no good, though I think the chances of that are minuscule at best.
Well,
can we say that any of us, I think we had lanterns in other points before. I think if we knew we were coming down underground, presumably somebody else might have a lantern for whoever wants to go up front.
Well, sorry, my mouse is playing up again. No one mentioned that we're bringing one to this point, but that doesn't necessarily matter. That's what the preparedness ability is for. So if you want to have brought a lantern, I'm going to need a preparedness roll for you. And I'm not going to it's not going to be too challenging, but it's not going to be super, super easy either. So if anyone wants to have a lantern with them, and I would suggest not everyone make this roll because all of you raising lanterns would be a bit silly. But like if you do want to have a lantern with you, make a preparedness roll and let me know what the results are.
I've rolled a 5. I have no preparedness, but I did roll a 5.
Okay.
I also rolled a 5.
Did anyone else roll? Oh. You both have lanterns on you.
Excellent.
I think Harry's not keen to be up front, so I'm not sure that Harry will be volunteering to be the one.
I'll go up front. It's fine. We'll lead the way.
Okay. All right. As a group, then you start kind of striding forward through the tunnels. Julien, well, Mark, he's kind of leaving it to you, Mark. So, there is nothing to distinguish between the different tunnels leading off this opening gallery. Is there any way that Mark picks, or is he literally just that one then?
I think. Oh God, I'd probably pick like randomly, maybe just sort of take like where we came in and take the entrance next to it. Working around in a was it like a circular-ish room? Was it? I'll just sort of.
It honestly doesn't really have a shape. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
not a room. Yeah. It's not like a chamber that's been like laid out like we will dig like a square.
Yeah,
they just have dug in the directions that it.
I guess I'll pick like the largest tunnel that we didn't come in from,
like the widest opening. Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
I will ask as I'm sort of setting off. I will ask Julien. Tell me again. Why was Mademoiselle Roudier? Why do you think she was down here? What was she doing?
Well, Monsieur Valac, I wish I had the answer to that question. Sadly, I do not. The library has not been particularly forthcoming with some details that they should have done. Really, I only know that she was down here, and I thought taking a look might reveal some motivation. These secret places in any city, they can attract attention, and I wish to see what attention this has attracted.
Very well, I suppose. Then let us set out.
You have been wandering down is it safe to say like there have been split up like other tunnels leading off from where you are? Are you just generally going in one direction, or are you like taking a look in different places and kind of trying to remember the way back? Or
Howie is noting that in his notebook. He's trying to keep a track.
Trying to keep a little map. Yeah.
As is Blaze.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'd definitely be wanting to follow a simple path, looking down, holding lights, holding the lantern into side passages, but trying to stick to a nice, simple, straightforward route and do it reasonably sort of logically.
Absolutely. And you do so pretty successfully. It's not like a warren, there are very good, generally quite long passages. I would say after about maybe 5 minutes or so of kind of, you're walking quite slowly, I think is fair to say, right? You don't want to like fall into a hole or something like that there could be down in an old quarry. You enter, you kind of like cast your lantern over to the side into a space over from the tunnel you're walking down, and you definitely see a more open area that looks a bit more unusual than anything you've passed so far, and perhaps worthy of taking a closer look. Do you think that would be the kind of thing where you'd, pop your head in and take a closer look?
I think so. I'd call out to the rest of the party and indicate it and sort of, yes, make a suggestion and see whether other people were willing. But
absolutely,
unless there were sort of grand objections,
that definitely won't be from Julian. Okay.
Yes, let's go investigate. Marie is going to be hanging back a little to be closer to Julien, and probably just as we enter this room, she's going to just kind of try and gently remind him about the notebooks, or the books that Miss Rudier was reading. And do you happen to have those books still on you? They may have any further information about what she might have been doing down here. If we could have a look.
I can assure you they do not. I do not have it on me. No.
Okay.
Did you want us to just come down here and wander around, or did you have some sort of idea of what you were looking for down here?
Sorry, we have just entered a new space. Do you want me to describe it before we get into a conversation, or? Okay. I'm not trying to cut you off. It's just I'm just like, you might be more interested in what's around you. So another large limestone gallery opens up around you, albeit laid out in a far different fashion to the one you entered through. The floor has been carved down about 2 feet for 2/3 of the gallery space, kind of steps set into the entrance, so you had to walk down them. It leaves much more headroom overhead. All around this lower space are limestone blocks that have kind of been left uncarved from the floor, resembling tens of kind of scattered stools. The untouched side of the chamber, where it hasn't been dug down at all, is the furthest from the tunnel you entered by, and it remains mostly in darkness. But you can see that there seem to be a number of items scattered around on that kind of higher floor. That was probably at least not a simple concept to have to just explain verbally. Does everyone feel like they've grasped it? It's fine if you haven't. I'll elaborate.
Yes, but could I perhaps use the architecture skill to try to discern what the purpose of such a chamber originally was?
You absolutely can, and I will also give it to Mark, because Mark has culture. This looks like some kind of performance space to you. Having entered this space, is Howie now more interested in the environment, or does he want to ask the same question now to Julien?
I think he still wants to ask the question. Like, there's weird shit going on. Where are we being led?
Sorry, you'll have to remind me of the specific question.
I think the question wasn't as direct as like, where are you leading us? But it's more like, didn't you have an idea of, did you want to just come down here and wander around in the tunnels, or did you have an idea of what you were looking for and where to go?
Well, what I'm looking for is Miss Renee. As for what's down here and where to go, no, I was just going to wander here with you. Have a look what's down here. Now we know what's down here. This seems quite an unusual thing to be down here.
Yes, I agree. Shall we... Sorry about my chair. Shall we have a look at the items down here. Maybe they indicate what kind of performance base this was for. Marie's also going to try and, after having asked the question about the notebooks and getting a really bad vibe of Julian now, is going to try and put everyone else between her and Julian.
Okay. I would definitely point out that unless anyone has mentioned it, only Theo and Mark got the impression that this is a performance space.
Okay. I mean, Marie is still interested in the items that were...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So on the raised floor, there are a number of things after you go a bit closer to sort of investigate it. Like everyone is still in the kind of sunken part of the chamber. But scattered on that raised floor are what looks to be an empty oil lantern, a scattering of torn pages, which all look to be blank, and a shallow bowl of sort of chipped limestone with a cloth strap attached to it. Who has intuition?
Alex says,
That's a mask. A
That's what-
featureless limestone mask.
we'll take a look at it and demonstrate to the others.
Mm-hmm.
This is a strange
do-
mask.
To do so, you have to kind of clamber up to the higher floor. Are you going to do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is anyone else going to do that? Maybe someone with a lantern to help Alex grab what's on the floor.
Sure, go on. Yes. I'll just say I have been trying to make scratches or something on entrances to try to indicate. But yes, this
and that's quite easy to do with the limestone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think not the mask, but I think even if they look blank, Howie will try to pick up the pages and turn them over and pocket them or have a look or something.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do, and they do look blank. Mark, you step onto the stage, and like ever since you've come into the room, there's definitely a slight smell that has assailed you a little bit more. And when you step on the stage, you smell it quite a lot. You don't. It seems to kind of like just be in general in the room. It doesn't like seem to come of a source, but it has a kind of sulfuric smell to it. Yeah, let me think what ability this would relate. I think this is a technology one, weirdly, or an architecture one as well. Theodore, you're possibly the only person who isn't thinking it's weird that there's this kind of like sulfur smell in the room. It's this kind of limestone, when it's broken, smells like hydrogen sulfide. So you're not surprised in the slightest. But everyone else might be slightly unnerved. It's probably not a smell you want to smell when you're underground, for both superstitious and scientific reasons. But as you step up onto the higher floor, Mark, your lantern illuminates the rear wall of this higher area, which is covered with elegantly and precisely painted elaborate black stars from the floor all the way up to the ceiling. Can I have a composure roll from everyone, please?
Oh, boysies.
This obviously is not mind warping at all, but it's an unpleasant reminder of recent events. So.
I got a
I got
3.
5 total.
We got 5. What else?
5
we got?
total.
5.
Also 5.
5,
Three.
3, 4. Okay. Mark and Howie, welcome to your... Are these your first shock cards?
certainly
Maybe.
mine. Yes.
I had a minor last time that I think has now been used. Yeah, it has been used. I had a minor card last time.
Yeah, they all go... almost all of them go away between sessions. Let me just bring this one up on screen to make it easy for you to note it down. You both are afflicted by unease, which I think is the one we had last week as well. I think Alex had it last week. Or last session, I should say. Your next presence or focus test, and those are types of ability, you should be able to see them on your character sheet, takes a -1 penalty, then you can discard it. So it's quite an easy one to get rid of. You're both afflicted by a sense of unease, which is probably pretty legit, all told.
Stars
yeah.
again?
And this
Who's been down here? This place isn't open access, is it?
Julien is standing on the stage with you and looking around, looking a little pensive. You all notice that he quite quietly drew his firearm from a pocket. I feel as though I should be upfront with information I have not yet revealed to you. The writings of Ms. Roudier were in her notebook, as I mentioned. And the reason I know she was down here is because a junior doctor passed the notebook to me. He had found it down here, abandoned, along with some reading glasses that also seemed to belong to this missing lady. These doctors, they used to come down here often on a lark. It was closed off because they got lost from time to time, but they still sneak through. My working theory was that she had come down here with a doctor friend. Now, I am not so sure. Seems there is more activity down here than I had surmised.
Yes, we should be careful.
Let's also not get too excitable. And Theodore is glancing nervously at what I assume is a pistol.
Mm-hmm.
Is it sort of like a revolver or?
Yeah. Oh, this is, do not fret, monsieur. This is not for you.
Yes, but we're in an enclosed space. Just let's stay calm. Yes?
You don't need to concern yourself, but your worries are noted.
The black stars that we see again, do they appear to be charcoal, and are any of them within arms, within reachable distance, or are they up on the
No,
ceiling?
they're all reachable, and
Oh,
no,
yeah.
they are not charcoal. They are elaborately painted. They are. It is a very. Those of you with painting, someone with skill did this. And I will go so far to Mark. I've already kind of given you some hints around it, but your culture will also apply. This looks like set dressing to you.
It seems almost as if this place has been set up as a makeshift stage, a theatre.
Yes.
Are these they're painted onto the limestone though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can I try just with anything that I might have on me to I'm not expecting to have a chiseling set or anything, but just try and knock off, to break apart some of the limestone where one of these is painted on.
To try and get a whole one.
Yeah. I'm thinking more to remove it off the wall. I'm not too worried about preserving it. I want to
deface it.
get it off the wall. Yeah.
Okay. I think I will ask for a preparedness roll for that. And I'm trying to calculate. You knew you were going down into limestone things more than anyone because you had the history one. So I'm not going to make it too difficult for you, but make a preparedness roll for me.
4 total.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. You can have a little chisel or a little hammer, a little rock hammer.
Yeah, I just want to remove one of these off the wall.
Okay, yeah, you get it's off the wall. It's definitely the fragment you get is not all of it. Some of it falls to the floor,
Yeah.
but you get about 2/3 of one of the stars. So you could definitely recognize the style of it. You know what I mean? You can examine the painting in sunlight a little more. But it looks very nicely painted, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, I might pocket that one that I've taken, but I think more than anything, I'm almost waiting for the other shoe to drop, in it being removed. I'm just waiting for something that probably doesn't even happen, but yeah. There's nothing else I'm really planning to do with it. That's kind of it at the moment.
You said someone with skill painted these. I also assume that if they were painted onto limestone, that there must be some kind of specific paint.
Yeah, it definitely will be, yeah.
So could I use a push to try and just let Marie like figure out what kind of paint it was, because that might help with identifying later on if someone has.
You
painted
can, but the fact that I have no answer for you, do you want to withdraw your
No,
push? Do you want to withdraw
I'll withdraw the push. Yeah.
Sure. I could go research and find it out for you, but the fact that I have to do that.
It was right. If it was like oil paint or something, it would just be.
Yeah. I suspect you can paint onto limestone with a number of things, but yeah, to get it to stay and not completely soak in and to keep detail, I'm sure there's some specific kind of paint you'd have to use. Or maybe even you would have to like put a almost like a surface on top, like a little like
a stencil,
like a
primer.
paint, a primer on top,
or a grounding.
And then paints on the primer. Whatever would have to be done has been done, but it is not a clue. So yeah.
Can I try and copy the design into my sketchbook?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can do
on
that
the page next to the copy of all of the things that were around Vulia's corpse.
Of course. Julien kind of nods as this is taking, as this is sort of taken shape, and says, "Shall we move on?"
I suppose we should. But if we are thinking that there might be danger, perhaps you should now go first, given you have the gun.
Monsieur Villac, if that is your wish, I am happy to comply.
So, do we think she was perhaps abducted? Is that what you're driving at?
Perhaps she was abducted by the people who did this. Perhaps she was one of the people who did this. Perhaps any number of things, but maybe there is more to be found.
Very well.
He steps off the stage, as do presumably any of the others of you who climbed onto it, and walks back to the passageway. This time now he is making the decisions, and he heads further down the passageway from where you are until you reach a kind of like ending that kind of tees out into 2 extra passages. He looks between them both, and sort of people immediately behind him seem kind of like sort of slightly shrug his shoulders and just start walking to the left. And you walk into, after a couple of minutes, what becomes kind of a wide tunnel with small carved holes in the wall. They don't have anything in them, but perhaps they did at some point in the past. Perhaps they were used for light or storing tools or something like that. And as you're part way down this tunnel, Julien's lantern, along with the lanterns of Mark and Marie, are suddenly extinguished with an odd sputtering sound and a gasp of rushing air. Julien gives a steady cry to stay calm, and then you all feel an odd lurching sensation underfoot, as if the stone foundations of Paris are madly spinning. It is difficult to stay on your feet and not tumble into the rough walls and floor of the quarries. Can everyone give me an athletics test, please? Roughly equivalent to a small unexpected tremor.
Like trying to keep your feet when the train breaks, kind of thing.
That's spot on. Because I might say, oh, that's too easy, but I see a remarkable number of people.
Yes, take a pill.
I don't know, you can't judge these things from appearance, but they look a lot healthier than me, and they're falling over.
It's a 4 total for me.
Got a 4, 5.
5.
It's a 5.
3. 3 for me.
3,
7.
5, 7. Okay, so the only person to get below 4 was Mark. Is that correct?
Seems like it.
Great. Welcome to your second card. Although it's not a shock card, it's a physical card. It's an injury card, so you don't need to worry about. You haven't stacked further towards death.
Right.
So there we go. So you just got a 3, right? So that's just the light one. You'll be delighted to know.
Lovely.
Incidentally, yeah, was that is uneasy something that would have affected that roll?
No, that
No.
athletics was physical.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was shock and focus.
That makes
presence
sense.
and focus. Sorry. Yeah.
It makes sense. Okay, this is the injury card that you now have, Steve. It's called Abrasion. Non-lethal. You don't need to worry about that. What that means, effectively, what non-lethal means is if this was your third injury card, you wouldn't die. It still counts as the third, so the fourth one, if it's easily lethal, would kill you. But yeah, roll a die before making an interpersonal push. Interpersonal is the social investigative abilities. On a 2 or less, you can't make the push. You discard it after taking a physical test. So there we go.
Okay.
I'll leave that up for a short while for you to grab it. And
I have grabbed it.
You have grabbed it. You are ahead of me in so many ways. Okay, so
Closer to death, it seems.
absolutely. There is going to be a scrabbling and a cursing from Julien, and after a tense 10 seconds or so, his oil lamp is relit. Now, could everyone roll a die, please, and tell me the results of it?
Just a D6, no
Just a
modification.
D6. Just a D6.
Got a 1.
Howie got a 1.
I
4.
rolled a 2.
I got a juicy 4.
Mm-hmm.
I swapped dice and rolled a 4.
3 for me.
3 for you.
It's your first die in dice jail, Steve. Yes.
How did Alex do?
Got a
Unless
4.
somebody said you got a 4. Okay, great. That means we don't need any rerolls because we got the results I needed. As I say, Julien relights his lamp. Mark, do you do so as well? I'm assuming you're
Yes.
trying to do it.
Yes.
Yeah. You could. You're a bit behind Julien. He has like a little extra supply of oil that he's using to help it, but you do so as well. You look around with uncertainty, almost immediately registering that Howie, Blaze, and Marie are not there. And perhaps even more inexplicably, you do not seem to be in the same passageway as when the lamp was snuffed out. Instead, you are in a circular chamber with 12 passageways leading out, evenly spaced. All of the passageways look subtly different, whether it be an alternate style of chisel marks on the walls, a change in air, or an increase or decrease in height. And I would like a composure roll from everyone who isn't missing. Please. This is going to be a similar composure roll to the one about finding the like stage. It's going to be a bit more difficult because I feel like things have ratcheted up. And it also means I have to talk about some house ruling because there's no rule in the book for what happens if you're making the same check as a card you already have. My house rule for this is that you can't get the same card again. Obviously, you can't duplicate. Well, not obviously, but you can't. I'm going to rule you can't. But Mark has this still, right? I'm going to say you have to make the same challenge roll as the others, and if you fail it, it's not, you don't get an extra card, but the card you have turns to the worst version of the card.
Okay.
Okay. And if you already have, if you're making it on the worst version of the card, then nothing can happen. So that's what I'm judging. So it's a composure roll, probably a bit more challenging than the last one. And Howie, Blaze, and Murray don't need to make it.
That is I invested, so it's a 6 + 3 for a 9.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Lucky one.
Nice.
I got a 6 total.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 2 points and oh shit. I spent 2 points on a roll of 4. -1 equals 3.
Dice jail getting pretty full there.
Equals 3. Okay. In that case, your card is going to escalate, Steve. So what I will do is bring this up. The higher form of unease is called dread, and it looks like this. So it's actually basically the same. Only you're going to go back to unease before you get rid of the card. So -1 to presence and focus tests, After any of those tests, you roll a die. If you roll even, then you swap dread for unease. So at least it's quite a straightforward.
And presumably, if you roll odd, you keep dread.
Correct.
Whoa.
Nasty.
So Mark, it's safe to say, is probably quite shaken.
Yep. Not happy. What the hell is going on? Where? Right, and can somebody remind me who's missing and who's here?
The people missing are Howie, Blaze, and Marie. And you know what? I'll actually take them off screen, shall I? That is a handy reminder. So we will see you in a second. Or not.
Julian is
Never
still
again.
here. Is that right?
Julian is indeed still here, yeah.
Blaze? Marie? Howie? What?
Did they run off? Where could they?
The ground seemed to move. Perhaps they were thrown off their feet somewhere, but
We're not. We didn't. We didn't slide. We didn't. Where is this?
Julian kind of is whipping the lamp round to take a look in the passageways. We must have slid. There must have been a landslide. Sometimes you can't even feel them.
we are not where we were. I don't know where this is, but it's somewhere new.
Could they have fallen?
Theodore's looking around for rubble, sign of instability.
Yeah,
anything
Mark
like
was
that.
just about to do that as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'll give you something for free here, Alex, because you have architecture. You can, as I say, all these passageways look subtly different from each other. It's all carved out of limestone, but they all look like they're kind of made in a slightly different way. It looks like, obviously, it's like a hub chamber, but all the different passageways look like they've been made in a slightly different way. You can quite easily recognize the passageway that you would assume seems to come from the Capuchin quarries with quite a bit of ease. And you're fairly sure that if you wanted to find your way back where you came from, that's probably the path to take. So that's good news, right?
Pretty good.
Pretty good news. You see no evidence of instability or like a landslide or a slip or anything like that, though.
Okay. Look, this can't have been a landslide. There's no disturbance. There's no rubble. There's I don't know. Look, the correct answer is I don't know. But it looks like that entrance over there may lead back to the quarries from which we came. Is it evident that that's the reason for that is because there's like a change in the composition of the stone or something?
Yeah,
or...
it's not really the composition of the stone so much. It is like the chisel mark, like the marks on the wall that have created the dig marks look the same to you. The height looks the same to you. It's a kind of like, it's almost like an intuitive architect. You're used to looking at buildings and stone and things like this, and you kind of gone, that looks like the same passageway, of passageway that we were moving through. It's that idea.
I think I will be going to each exit in turn and shouting down, calling names down to see if I can hear a response from the others.
You are calling. There is no response. As you do so, Julien kind of like walked up alongside you and is tilting his lamp into each passageway in turn and talking. It seems partly to himself and partly out loud. These do not seem to be the quarries, do they? Where do these run? To the catacombs? The sewers? How many of these passageways run beneath the city? This could be a fool's errand. And something is wrong. He is holding his gun again at the ready.
Is there any sense of what this room serves as functionally? Like you've said, it's like a hub where these tunnels interconnect.
And there's nothing else to it. There's barely any gap to it. It seems to primarily be an intersection.
It's just a junction, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We need to find our companions, and I think the first place to look is where we were before. If we can head back, we should.
I agree. We dare not go further.
He nods. I'm trying to think if any of you will if there's any specific, let's go with technology, because it's not an easy one to implement, Bilzali. So I think it would be. Although actually, you know what, Alex, I bet you know this. You're a bit of a firearms nerd. Did 1890s revolvers have safeties?
Ooh. I don't know, actually, honestly. I would
don't know.
imagine that they I would have imagined that they did.
Either they did, or you know what they did have is the
Hmm.
ability to cock them, right? So
Yeah.
I think either, like, if there was a safety, so don't at us, folks out there.
Yes.
If such a thing as a safety exists, you notice him thumbing the safety off, and if it does not, he audibly cocks the revolver.
Yeah.
And
Do take care, sir. If our friends are now in front of us.
I assure you, Monsieur Valak, I share your fears. He steps into the passageway back from which you came, which I'm assuming is you're also going to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Alex is keeping
John
real
said-
eyes on Julian at this point.
John says yes. Grip safeties existed in the 1880s. Yes, so he is the safety is coming off. So, okay, you all step in to head back. Let's have a bit of a switch of characters, shall we? So we're losing Mark, we're losing Alex, we're losing Theodore, but we are gaining Blaze. Or we will, as soon as my mouse just keeps stopping every few minutes. We're gaining Blaze, and we're gaining Marie. Right, let's carry out the scene. I did that just to see Inga's reaction along the bottom of StreamYard. So you, Marie, you have a lantern as well, right? I'm assuming you're going to try and relight it.
I do not have a lantern.
Oh, don't you? Does Blaze have a lantern? It's two people.
Howie
was
has
it Howie?
lantern.
It was Howie. Okay, then that's absolutely fine. Obviously, you felt the shift, and you kind of bumped into each other. And it's up to you how quickly you become aware that the others are not with you anymore. But you can only hear each other.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
Marie's immediately going to be going like, "What happened? Is anyone else there?" And then she'll probably hear Blaze. But yeah,
I can't hear anyone else.
is anyone else there? And then she's going to wait for a bit, and if there's no response, she is going to start freaking out a bit.
Blaze is gonna get down on his hands and knees and start feeling the floor in case everyone apart from us has lost consciousness or something.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good thing to do. You feel no one, just bare rock. And then you both become aware of a slightly, like a faint glow. Like you start to basically see each other's outline and the outlines of the walls, and you can see further down a corridor, there's like a glow that certainly looks like it may be like a lamp or lantern light.
Okay. Blaze, I think we should head towards that lantern. I think that's what it is. It's better than staying in the dark on our own, and maybe that's where our friends went.
Yeah, let's go look, and if they're not there, come back.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe they got off the path somehow.
Mm-hmm. So, as I say, ahead of you, as you start to kind of like move cautiously forwards, there is a light, and then there is also sound, tapping sounds that seem to increase in volume oddly, as if swelling from silence. As you approach closer, the tapping resolves itself to the sound of several picks or chisels hammering into stone. And then just as your senses kind of like marshal enough to focus on this, a chanting begins, rising from a low murmur to a crescendo of voices well used to singing as a chorus. It is beautiful and strange and echoes in an unsettling fashion between the close tunnel walls around you. Then it sinks into silence again, and rounding the corner of the tunnel from the light, you find yourself in the opening galley once more. of the source of the sounds. There is no sign. Can I get a composure check, please? It is obviously alarming, but you have at very least found yourself safe at the end of it. So pitch accordingly.
That's a 3 total for me.
Mm-hmm.
That is a 4 total for me.
Okay. We have a shock card for Holly in that case. The shock card. This is actually a test that we've done numerous times, I think, since we started, and this is the first time I think someone has failed it. So you are going to get a shock card called Unnerved. And let me get that up in the browser. Here we go. It's quite a simple one to get rid of, so that's good for you. You're on open mic, by the way. Yes, Unnerved. You can discard this by using an investigative ability to gain information, which is pretty straightforward as it goes. So not too bad. And I'm just going to double check the abilities you all have, because there's a bit of extra information I want to give you if it applies, but it probably doesn't. Actually, I think it does. Yes. Okay. Holly. The chanting voices were chanting in Latin, which I'll give you from your art history.
Okay.
But they were way too muffled and echoey to hear what was being sung, but it was Latin. Okay. So you, by the way, I did make it clear you're in the opening where you came into the tunnels. You're there, right? So the stairs up and out are ahead of you. Okay. Hi, Inga.
I felt really good about rolling that one.
Sure. So you have a lantern, right?
I do, yeah. I guess that's also probably blown out, though.
It did, but do you want to? Are you going to relight it?
Yes, I sure will.
Okay. You relight the lantern. You find yourself in another kind of like rough limestone tunnel, unremarkable in any way. You've been through a number of these that look like this, but this one has a difference. Ahead of you, a figure stands framed in something like light. They are tall and robed and cowled in an ascetic fashion and stand as if waiting for you. They extend an arm to you in greeting or welcome or an offer of help, though the fingers that protrude from the loose sleeve of the robe seem distended and withered in the gathered darkness. Despite this registering with you as a moment of much-needed caution, you feel an overwhelming and light-headed urge to take their hand. I need a composure roll from you, please. I think it's a situation which probably many of your senses are blaring at you to not do what you want to do. So, like, it's probably not going to be like, it's not going to be like, it's a modest challenge.
Yeah. Honestly, my challenge more here is that, like, I kind of feel like I don't want to add points to this because I'm like, I feel it's just shocking. I kind of want to just leave it to the dice, but like that also feels like kind of stupid in the sort of mechanics of the game. But
I definitely say it would be, yeah.
Yeah. So I will do it. How many will I put? Yeah, I'm gonna go pretty big on this one. I think I'm gonna add 4 points from my pool, and I've just rolled a 3, so that's 7 total. Oh, God,
okay.
I added more. It is what it is.
You do not give in to being compelled to reach out and take this figure's hand. You definitely have a like wash of this is a very stressful, intense moment, clearly. What do you think Howie's reaction, if not compelled to reach out and take the hand, will be? And it can be like anything. Like, I wouldn't advise reaching out and taking the hand, otherwise it kind of messes with the thing. But like, you can speak, you can run, you can collapse, you can scream, you can to try and hit the thing. Like, what do you think Howie's reaction would be?
I think just like initially start just trying to, if he's as he has like forced himself not to go forward and reach out, start to just try and back away, but like keeping eyes fixed on this thing, and like with like probably first steps like really quite shaky, but trying to like just more like hopefully building a bit of speed to kind of just go like back and just put some distance between this thing, like desperately hoping there's something, a passage behind me or something that I can go into, and there's nothing else behind me that's worse than this, which I don't think there will be.
Absolutely. You back away, and it's like you don't fall over, but you're definitely kind of stumbling as you're doing so. It's uneven footing, right? And as you do so, you kind of like briefly, you don't look away from the figure, but you like at least tilt your eyes to kind of like get a sense if there's something behind you, and then like something in the corner of your vision flickering in and out, like it's the same thing of, oh, did I see that? But it's like in reverse, it's gone. And at the start of that, you stumble backwards a bit and collide with someone who says, oh, Monsieur Drummond, you are good. I am not shaky with this gun. You have backed around a corner, and in front, like you bumped into Julien, who is sort of like looking slightly pale, and like like you suddenly leapt out, and he's armed, but he didn't shoot.
He's there. The king in the tatters. Something was there. Something.
Where are the others?
I might pull out that limestone bit of star and just like throw it on the ground and smash it under my feet.
Howie, where did you come from? Where have you been?
I don't know.
This is making an assumption of players' actions who haven't confirmed it, but if I could just bring them on and say something, I think you might be able to hear, and they can. If you don't agree, go. You know, Julien kind of goes. You hear that? You can hear the very distant and echoing shout of what sounds like Blaze and Marie calling your names.
Let's head out. Let's head to them.
Thank God for your marks, Monsieur Valac.
Yes.
Within minutes, you were all standing in the opening gallery.
Oh, thank goodness you're okay. What happened? Where did you go to?
Did you move?
Did you hear singing?
Who?
There was. Murray, you heard it as well.
Yeah,
yes,
the chanting. It was in Latin, and there were pickaxes as well. Maybe it was some mine workers or something who from the hospital. I don't know.
Julien, perhaps we should leave. I don't think there's much more we can do.
We will leave. He is.
Yes.
He has pulled a second revolver out of his clothing and is kind of like loading it as he does so before he puts it back in his pocket. I feel like something is going on here larger than our missing persons. No. Who's been coming down here? Where do the tunnels all lead? What happened to us? This seems beyond me for the moment. I am going to take an evening's rest and then return to the library in the morning, where I will endeavour to find more answers about what Clotilda may have been seeking down here. You are welcome to join me if you wish. I will be outside the library at 10 in the morning, sharp.
Bring those notebooks.
I will bring the notebooks. You kind of all clamber up the long stairs to the hospital. Julien kind of says quite not an unfriendly, but certainly a terse kind of farewell. He wants to get the hell out of here just as much as you do, and says for those of you who are interested, he will meet you at 10 in the morning in front of the Saint-Geneviève library. This obviously clashes a little bit with Blaze and Marie's schedule, almost as if I planned it.
Howie, you look. Are you all right?
I saw that. I saw
Who?
it was that it was that same figure from Rodon's painting. I saw him. It took everything I had not to reach. It was reaching out to me, and it took everything I had not to. I don't know where it came from, but then suddenly it was gone.
That okay. That sounds horrible. Let's go get some air. It sounds like we've all had disturbing
Get air, I need a
experiences.
drink.
Yes.
Okay. So I am aware that after incidents like this, we probably want to have a big discussion scene. I am also aware of our like stream timings. So how about we take like 5 minutes maximum to debrief. We don't have to at all. We can like, you can just talk about what you talk about. Does that make sense? Like rather than have the active discussion, it's entirely up to you. But let's take like a maximum of 5 minutes because otherwise we're. I just want us to get the story done.
Yeah, I mean, Marie and Blaze have already said like what they heard, so Marie will just like reconfirm that it was Latin chanting and pickaxes. But she's also going to make a note of what other people experienced as well. So she's going to write down that Howie like saw a ghostly figure.
Yeah, Howie has like no sense of deception on this. Like he does not have the wherewithal for anything like that. He might struggle to get some of the words out, but will otherwise just be totally open about whatever he can pass of that experience.
Did Blaze mention the vision that they saw last time round, the one in the opera house?
Oh yeah, the like vision. Like I'm talking around these things, but I'm imagining we're putting the pieces together. So if I said the vision of the commune, like then yeah, we know what's going on, don't we?
I think because everyone came out of the tunnels looking a bit harried, that me admitting that obviously just, a bunch of actors rehearsing a thing gave me a fright it would seem a bit.
You could definitely rationalize it that way, couldn't you?
Yeah, it would seem like, well, I've had a bad day too, kind of thing, which isn't what I wanted to say when two of them were soaking wet.
That's pretty legit.
I think Mark will just be knocking drinks back, trying to steady his nerves.
Yeah, I think Theodore will be drinking with more abandon than is characteristic, and will largely just be repeating an utterance of it wasn't a landslide, it wasn't a tremor, and he'll just sort of be almost muttering that to himself as he continues to drink.
Is there anything from anyone else, or are we kind of a bit too shell-shocked to have much of a conversation?
Definitely a bit shell-shocked. Marie is also going to seem quite distracted. So how much time is there until these paintings are due in?
As long as you can even bring them with you at 9:30 tomorrow, like as long as they're there by then. But like if you want, you can have delivered them in the afternoon. You had
well, Marie has already picked out a few that she likes, but she looks fairly eager to like get away from the group.
Sure.
So yeah, when it looks like the conversation has died down, she's going to excuse herself and head back to the school to do some painting.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like we're kind of like we're happy moving on for that, and yeah.
So one last thing, out of interest, did was it? I can't remember if it's Theodore or Alex. Did they grab the mask that they saw?
Alex said he was holding the mask. I don't know if he
Yeah.
dropped it or left it or.
I think Alex will have taken it.
Mhm.
And for his part in this conversation, I think the main thing that he will contribute is a warning against Julien that, like, he was paying off that guy. It's not as didn't seem as legit as maybe some
He
kind of
was
private
definitely
investigator might
bad
be.
news. Yeah.
Yeah, like has 2 guns. I don't know. In general, not good.
I'm not going to leap to Julien's defense, but I will say, as someone with Demimond Alex, a private investigator bribing someone is pretty standard.
Yeah, I think that is fair, but that equally, Alex didn't like that he was willing to pay this random guy a bribe and not offer us any money, and equally is like, this guy is kind of both in over his head and knows more than he's telling us. Like at the same time, is just
he's
all
keeping
around
too many
badness.
secrets.
He's withholding information and also didn't tell us he was taking us down there with loaded guns, which is a bit of a no-no.
Yeah.
Sure.
Can I, while we are in better light, if Alex has the mask with him, could I have a look at it?
Yep.
From like how finely crafted is it?
Yeah.
Oh, you've got sculpture now, haven't you?
Yeah.
Pass it around as
not very.
fast.
It's like a fairly roughly carved out shallow bowl in the shape of a face.
It's like someone
Really.
really wanted to make a mask out of stone, but it maybe wasn't like not particularly skilled.
Anyone with any rude, I mean, the other alternative is this is the precise effect that they were going for, but it has a kind of like primitive vibe to it, or like someone who, just had no real sculpture skills, but just kind of bashed away until they had something that would fit.
I'll hand it back to Alex and say they didn't even put eye holes in it.
So moving on from that thought, shall we do the salon first? It is slightly earlier in the morning, so we'd be staying chronological if we do that. So Blaze and Marie, and you know what, we've mostly kept everyone on screen, but I like being able to see people a little more is good. Blaze and Marie, you arrive at the school the following morning. Do you think you'd arrive on time, a bit early? What do you think?
I think early.
Marie doesn't arrive early. She arrives like probably a couple of minutes late and looks exhausted.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A large common room has been cleared of the chairs, tables, and bookcases that normally fill the space. And on the walls and spread around on easels are a great many paintings. The fireplace is still burning, in fact, stoked to a roaring flame, slightly too warm for the balmy spring day outside. Nervous-looking young painters, many of whom are students you recognize, stand around next to their pieces. Most have brought 2 or 3, but some are presenting the maximum of 5, leading to quite a crowded space. In a corner, talking quietly, are a number of older individuals, including Jerome. You both have painting. A number of the other individuals are notable painters, including Pierre Puvis de Chavannes, mural painter, whose nickname is the Painter for France, which is very... striking name, obviously, and I'm more than happy to bring his photo up. Marie, you have art history, right? This is clearly the selection committee for the Société Nationale des Beaux-Arts, behind the Nationale, made up of some of the surviving founders. And now we have Blaze with sculpture, right?
Yes.
So this is a person who's been mentioned before. This individual is also there. This is the famed sculptor Rodin. already looking around with interest at nearby works. You can also they are basically gathering themselves to start, and it looks like you're some of the last because they're kind of like sweeping around the room in a certain order. You also see that a few places ahead of you, Laura Hilton is also here. The first time you've seen her in quite a few days, and she is kind of standing alongside a number of her sculptures, many of which look to be quite different from her usual ones. She doesn't seem to have noticed your presence yet.
Marie's probably going to wander up to Laura and just like make a couple of comments on the sculptures, like just say, "Oh, that's really interesting work that you've got there. Yeah, I really like how you've incorporated shapes."
Blaze, are you also accompanying and chatting? You'll have ages until the selection committee reaches your pieces.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't really seen Laura since I started my interest in sculpture, so we good to kind of assess a peer's work and feel inferior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Laura kind of greets you both warmly, kind of somewhat distractedly. There's something about her that seems a little bit fragile and on edge, but she waves away her lack of presence. I've simply been too busy for class. You have assess honesty, don't you, John?
Yes.
She is definitely holding something back. And you also have sculpture. Her pieces for selection are really very different from her usual works. They are strange, turbulent shapes, frayed at the edges. At first, they seem entirely abstract, but the shadows they cast on the wall from the flames in the hearth seem to mark them out as obscene, contorted figures, clothed in a torn and ragged mantle.
Interesting figures that you've chosen.
I just thought I'd try something new. Your works look amazing as always, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. What was the inspiration?
Just thoughts, dreams, just things that come to me. I'm sorry, I have a presentation I want to give the selection committee. If you don't mind, I'd like to practice it.
Of course. Happy to be of help.
No, I mean to myself.
Ah,
Right.
I see.
Yes.
Well, best of luck. Your work is fantastic.
I'll come
hope
out
you do well.
I'll come out for a drink soon. I promise. I've just had I've been working so hard.
Please do, and I completely understand. But we would love to have you. So anytime.
I know. I'll see you soon. She reaches out and kind of grasps your arm.
Yeah. Yeah. Marie will like. She'd know if Laura's like the kind for hugs or not. So
yeah, she's quite
yeah. So
tactile.
Marie will like pull her in for a quick hug and then wander off.
Yeah. So speaking of your pieces, why don't you give me? We don't have to go into super detail, but Blaze, let's start with you. Is there anything that kind of marks them out? How many pieces have you brought, and kind of like what is there anything that remarkable? You can say no. You just say they are portraits. They are my best portraits.
I think I've brought 4 portraits. One of them was a commission that I managed to get a hold of back on Lend. That is very traditional, very posed, very strong lighting, showing the subject in their best clothes, in their best light, slightly more attractive than they are in real life because I was being paid for it. The second one is one of my morgue paintings. And I chose this one because the coloring, because the subject is deceased, it's a very different color palette, and maybe not immediately obvious why the color palette is different. Introspection, yada yada. The third one will probably be a little bit more impressionistic and rough.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth one will be a bit more. I've been reading the symbology book, so there's a much more
Simplest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a person posed with a skull and maybe a very dark ceiling above. Things. I'm on the spot.
Yeah,
You know where I'm going with this.
I needed like a sentence, so that
Okay.
you have given so much detail is absolutely fine. Well, not a sentence. The detail you've given is absolutely sufficient. The selection committee, right? Like I say, you're kind of the two at the end. Marie's at the very end. Blaze is just before. The selection committee arrives and kind of start looking it over. Jerome kind of like looks over at you, and you're slightly surprised that he gives you like a very kind of deliberate and slightly awkward kind of. He seems to approve of your selections. To your perhaps delight, Rodan kind of steps in and is looking at your impressionistic piece and kind of like tousles his hand in his beard and says, I like the impression of movement and flow. It's important to capture. Bodies are not still, they move. And you have captured this. I like it. I like this one. Jerome says, I like the piece of the corpse myself, the colors. I am not comparing your painting to Marat, but reminiscent. A couple of the others kind of make some comments. A couple of also kind of like slightly critical, like constructive comments as well. But in the end, they agree with Rodan that your impressionist piece is your best. Rodan encourages you to go down that road perhaps in the future, and they kind of like move on to Marie. Marie, again, tell us how many pieces you brought and kind of like.
Okay, so Marie has brought the full 5. The first 2 are very classical landscape paintings. Classical oil paintings. Green fields. They're of her home as well.
Right.
The first one was one that she did a while ago. The other one is from memory, so it's a little bit more kind of loose with how things are flowing.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is one of the paintings that she did when she was trying to imagine the centerpiece of triptych, which she's fairly pleased with, but that has a much more impressionistic style than the other 2. It's definitely heading in that direction. The other 2 are much more impressionistic, definitely leaning into full symbology. So the first one of those 2 is of the lake under the opera house, with the black stars on the wall, but it's very shadowed, and there's almost a greenish eerie glow floating above the water, which is providing all of the light. So it's the reversed coloring that Redon was using in his stuff as well. So it's been inspired by that. And then the most recent one was of the performance space that they came into. Again with the black stars, but this one is even more impressionistic because it's all within that limestone mask.
Yeah.
So the performance space is actually within the mask,
Right,
in terms of
okay, yeah.
how the landscape
Like-
is laid out.
Kind of advanced symbol, almost moving to like abstract. kind of, like-
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, or surrealist, I should
And
say.
that's what she's been up all night painting.
Sure, yeah.
So she's just like looking absolutely wiped, like desperately looking for their
Sure.
impression of these.
Absolutely. Well, you're kind of like, as everyone else is, you're kind of stood behind your paintings as they're kind of like examining them. And they look over and they make some very interesting kind of interested noises at first. Rodan is stood a bit back and says, "Gentlemen, if it's not a human form, I may be of limited use here, I am afraid. Madame, I am not demeaning your work in any way. Your brushwork seems excellent, but I am, if it does not have the passion of the human form, I simply cannot speak to my expertise on these matters, but I commend you on your work." The others kind of lean in a bit more. Jerome kind of like nods and is kind of looking at them and turns to the mural painter Chavan, who kind of nods and sort of gestures at you've laid them out in chronological order, let's say, kind of gestures at the newer ones and says, "These are interesting, and I could see the development of your technique. I could see, as Master Rodan says, the brushwork is definitely improving and it's getting more interesting. The subject matter, and it is not on you. We paint that which is around us. We paint that which we're influenced by, and entire movements have come and gone, young lady, of swathes of artists painting the same thing. But I have to say, I've simply seen so much of these themes recently that they are good. What interests me is actually these, not so much the first. Competent. This one, this second one, it is positively apocalyptic. The way you caught the fire roaring through the trees, through the landscape. Fascinating. He does not seem to be describing your painting.
Yep, and Marie almost has a slightly horrified look because this has happened to her before when her other paintings have turned into nightmarish horrorscapes. So she's just going to look on with a little bit of trepidation.
Is she going to lean forward and look at what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Make a composure roll, please.
Okay.
This is something, as you say, that's happened to you before, but it's still a pretty high pressure environment for this to be happening to you currently.
I said 5 total.
5 total. Okay. You have not failed, so you're taking no shock from it. But yes, the painting you did of your home in memory, the landscape is one of fire and charnel earth. Black trees reaching up to a tortured sky. What was your childhood home is now kind of ruins. There are vague, discomforting outlines that may be bodies strewn among the wreckage. It looks nightmarish. But even in your shock at this moment of this not being the painting you thought it was, you are also forced to acknowledge it is certainly the best work you have ever done. Okay, I think we will leap from the salon selection there. And that's the painting they're picking, obviously. To 10 o'clock in front of the Saint-Germain Library. Oh, God. Sorry, not alarm at Steve, just alarm at full screen.
Everyone roll composure, please.
Yeah. Bless. So, where are we? Yes. The Saint-Geneviève Library is notable for its imposing modern glass and iron reading room, and is one of the it's definitely a library with some history in Paris, but I've completely blanked. Who has history? Does anyone here have history? Yes. Howie, you know a little bit about the Saint-Geneviève Library. there was an abbey called the Saint Genevieve Abbey, and basically, like many of the abbeys and other like church type buildings, it did not have a good time after the revolution, and all the stuff from that library got moved to this library, and that's why it's called the Saint Genevieve Library. Incidentally, I'll also give you this as a history person. Saint Genevieve is the patron saint of Paris, which is why a lot of stuff here is called Saint Genevieve. She was also the patron saint of plague victims and a number of other things. So Julien is stood waiting on the street for you, and sort of raises his hand and says, "Just the 4 of you today, or for now, or
For now.
Our companions are not full-time investigators, as I'm sure you can understand.
I understand." And speaking of which, I'll be diverting as much of my funds as I can to you. It is not fair that you participate in this alongside me without reparation. Not to this degree. I'll be honest. I thought perhaps I was potentially taking some suspects down with me into the tunnels. But unless you have a elaborate sound and light show that you conjured out of nowhere in preparation for this, there is something bigger going on and none of us understand it.
I can assure you we are in the same boat, that we do not understand what is going on, and we have been struggling with it ourselves.
Well, then shall we receive some answers? Oh, Monsieur Drummond, the notebook.
I'll have a look, and I think the main thing that I'm interested in seeing is like those words that were written and if they seem familiar to me in terms of the kind of scroll that I've seen in my notebooks.
I don't know if this is more reassuring for you or more horrifying, but there is very tight notes all the way through this. They're very like notes that make sense to the person who wrote them, not necessarily to you. You can see that they like match a lot of like what Julien was talking about. There's obviously a real interest in history and things that you have history, but you do not know this specific stuff. There are scrolls in the margins. Some of them appear to have been added later, and in a slightly more desperate hand, but every word in this notebook is most definitely written by the same person. And I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse.
And just for clarity, it's not the same hand as the mysterious scrawlings in mine. I'm not like, it's her.
Not at all. Not at all. Okay. All right. So we accompany Julien into the library. Is that safe to say? He leads you inside quite confidently through some corridors to the office that is marked as deputy to the head librarian. He walks in and introduces you to a gentleman called Angers Mouret, who looks kind of uninterested, if we're honest. Is dressed in quite a for the time, quite a like by the numbers sort of like polite workwear, and kind of sits down and says, "Well, I don't have chairs for all of you, Monsieur Alert. I'm not sure why you clearly you have these companions. Do you have any news, or are you handing in a notice, so to speak? I wouldn't particularly blame you." Julien shakes his head and says, "No luck so far, monsieur. We have not really found any forward motion. Well, it doesn't surprise me you haven't been able to find the little girl. She was flighty at best, and at worst took to dreaming over the past more than looking to her future and that of the library." Just so. We were wondering if we could have a little more information about her investigations here, her assignments, her work. Anything relevant would be of interest. I don't see that her assignment has much to do with it. It certainly wasn't dangerous. I suppose it's fine to tell you if it satisfies you enough to let me get on with a busy day of work. After the revolution, the library was mostly kept together, unlike many others that had a more theological origin. Some books went missing, but most were retained. The same cannot be said of its cabinet of curiosities, which was somewhat dispersed. We managed to hold on to a few items, the astronomical clock, a number of busts, but many of them vanished off to collectors' less salubrious places. Clotilda was one of a number of junior librarians and students assigned to research these and potentially reacquire them, with help from library funds, of course. Julien leans forward. Is that all you can tell us? And Murray kind of waves his hand and says, all the rest is just detail.
If there's any information or any records you have, anything like that you could point us in the direction of, that would be quite helpful. And I do have research as a skill, if that helps.
It does.
And I'm willing to push on research as well.
That is good to know, but I have listed here. I do not have a push required listed here, so I'm happy for you to just utilize research. I generally kind of make it clear that you are familiar with library goings on and stuff. Murray kind of looks at you for a second and says, someone knows what they're talking about. It really is library business, but I suppose if you feel she might actually be in some danger, I can accommodate you. She was looking for an astrolabe. Are you familiar with supposedly crafted by a former abbot of the monastery of Saint Genevieve, Guiscard of Carcosa?
Mark would start looking at the other people in the group at the mention of Carcosa.
I'm trying to remember what's been shared in the group previously about the
people on
religious bits of it.
Well, certainly the people on the boat will have seen the name Carcosa written on the wall.
Oh, that's.
Was it on the wall?
No,
it was on the burnt pieces of paper.
Right,
Yeah,
it was
that's
Il
right.
Arrive was
Yeah,
written
yeah.
on the wall, wasn't it?
Yeah, all the burnt pieces of paper were burned, apart from they all had the word Carcosa visible on them at certain points. Is anyone going to
Yeah, the what of Carcosa? Sorry,
what?
Something
I said no such thing. Guiscard of Carcassonne. I believe he was a canon at the abbey during the miracle of the burning sickness, and then later became an abbot. A somewhat controversial figure in his later years, Clotilda requested to hunt down this astrolabe specifically because of him, I believe. She had a fascination with the processions of Saint Genevieve and the burning sickness in particular. Can everyone make a composure check, please? Probably not as hard. This is the second or third time you've gone, what? And have sort of experienced a group moment of slight or maybe hallucination or not. So it's not hugely challenging, but I thought I'd throw it in there just for fun.
That's a 4.
Got a 4.
5.
6 for me.
6.
I spent 3 points. I rolled a 5, -1 for the thing. So
You got
7.
7.
Yes.
All fine. You're all fine.
But now I need to roll.
Yes. See if you get an even them.
I rolled a 1.
So you keep in dread for now.
Whoa.
Okay. I told her that purchase and collection records would service her better than historical obsessions and pestering the poor masters at the Lycée Henri IV to let her onto the old abbey grounds. But here we are. Perhaps if she had listened to me, she wouldn't be in whatever predicament she is in now. Julien levels a quite calm and cold stare at the man. Just so, monsieur. Thank you for your time.
Wait, she went to the old abbey grounds?
Julien stands up, and as you ask, he kind of leans slightly into you and says, I know where they are. This batard will not help us any further.
Well, it may all simply be details, but we have a saying, do we not? The devil is in the details.
don't put me off the details. You said the purchases and the records from that. Can we take a look at those as well?
I don't have them. It was her job to find them.
Right.
Really, I've told you all there is to know.
Then let us be on our way.
I'm missing John and his assess honesty skill.
Sure. You walk out of the office and Julien seems aggravated. And as you reach outside, he kind of shakes his head and runs his hand through his hair. The Lycée, it's a school built on the old Abbey grounds. I know where it is. Sounds like our next port of call.
How did these people agree to pay for your services? They seem very uninterested in this missing person.
I think they're going through the motions. But from what I know of Clotilda or of anyone, it seems like she deserves more than this, yes?
Yes,
so perhaps,
of course.
Perhaps we should proceed to the school. Do we need to wait for your companions?
Do we have any sense of how long
like
it might be? Yeah.
Let's say you reckon they'll be done by, early afternoon. So perhaps if they wanted to join you, it would be not let's massage it to get the group together.
I mean, I guess we can leave a message.
Let them know where we are.
If it's too early, we'll leave a message at the cafe where we normally go meet them for a drink or whatever.
I'm just looking because I kind of haven't talked about where we are geographically. But the vast majority of stuff in this story is all in a very short walk from each other in like south of the Seine. You know what? In fact, John, let's bring Holly and John back on just because it sounds like we're reuniting. And John, do you want to bring up the there we go. We got a little map of Belle Epoque Paris here that we haven't really used before in the thing. Is your cursor visible on this, John, if you waggle it around?
Let me just find the tab. Yes.
Cool. Okay, so and this is kind of for you guys' interest as well. So we began with the hospital, right, which is in Montparnasse, which is arrondissement, I believe the 14th arrondissement. So that XIV, which is you're around there. The library is in, and I might be a bit wrong with these, but I know roughly where they are, so I'm just kind of like guessing. The library is in the Latin Quarter, which is also where the school is, which is the 6th arrondissement, so just above that. So that's kind of where you all are now. And then where else have we got? The Lycée is also in the Latin Quarter, but a bit further to the east, in the 5th arrondissement. 5th and the 6th are both the Latin Quarter. That's where you live as well, all of you. So that's kind of a general idea of the geography of it. Does that help place things a little more? Yeah, hopefully. And we were going to say we might try and get actual names for the areas on the map, so we don't have to talk about the numbers quite so much. But or if anyone out there has a recommendation for a period map that's better than this, please let us know. But Holly found this one, and I like it. It's pretty striking. You could use the names on it. Awesome. So, with that in mind, do you think we would meet up? I think they might just swing by the school and get you on your way out. Sounds weird. Picking you up after school. Just,
That seems sensible, yeah.
Your parents. Yeah, sure. As you reconvene, is there anything in particular you want to share? Like, I'm happy for all details to be updated, but is there anything particular you want to interact about or talk about as you reconvene as a group?
Awesome. How it went, how the presentation went.
Yeah, Marie is happy, but also looking quite A, incredibly tired, and B, really confused and worried.
That's notably different to your normal demeanor, isn't it?
Blaze, I think, is looking slightly more excited than usual, but still with the same sort of constant background anxiety that's very obvious on him at all times.
Murray, what's wrong? You seem preoccupied. Did it go
Well,
badly?
it went fantastically. They really liked one of my pieces. The piece in particular wasn't. I don't really remember painting what was on the canvas. It's not the first time that kind of thing has happened to me. Yeah. Specifically, it seems to be when I try to paint memories of home, it ends up not looking that nice. But in a slightly apocalyptic way, rather than the painting is bad. They seem to like it.
I like the sense that the way Marie is talking about this is kind of ambiguous in a kind of like, oh, I don't really. It almost sounds like a process rather than a, you know what I mean? And in the spirit of that, before we delve further into this mystery, why don't we arrive at the Lycée? This is what it looks like. It's a more modern Parisian building, clearly built around the ruins of an old abbey. It literally has a far older and more historical looking tower rearing out of it that you can see there. You walk between this and a very large church, which we'll probably mention in a bit in more context, but let's not bog ourselves down. And accompanied by Julien, you find yourself walking into the kind of front lobby, as it were. Lobby isn't really the right word for a school, but to the front desk of the school, where a young woman is sat behind it and kind of looks at with a little bit of confusion at these 7 adults just randomly walking into the school together. And can I help you, Madame, Monsieur? Julien isn't necessarily leaping to take the lead, so because I don't want to have the NPC do everything. So
I'm not sure Marie and I know why we're here.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
We'll explain it on the way. Like that would be the main point of the debrief. Like we didn't really get much info other than we know she was in this spot. That's why we're going there next.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Marie would probably just say we're continuing an investigation looking for a missing woman, a librarian. We believe that this is where she was heading last to do some research. Miss Rudier, if that name is familiar at all, and then she's going to look towards Julien to provide some more information or description.
Julien nods and kind of inclines his head a little bit towards her and says, my name is Mr. Julien Alette. I represent Keenan Company, and these are my companions. Absolutely, we are looking for a missing woman. And the lady says, forgive me, I don't know what that has to do with the Lycée, Monsieur. Is anyone going to leap in with any particular ability?
Sure. I think, I'll jump in and just do a little bit of light charming with Bonhomie and explain that yes, she was researching this astrolabe. I believe it's part of your collection, or she was at least wanting to uncover details about it here. So if you could help us out in any way, point us in the right direction, I'd be terribly honored.
I don't know anything about an astrolabe, Monsieur, but I suppose you could probably speak to Dr. Patin. I think he's free, but he's the master of theology here. Do you think that might have been someone she would have spoken to?
Turning to look at our colleague.
Yeah, I mean, she was interested in in the history of the abbey, and it certainly seems like the religious connection was part of the investigation. So thank you so much. It's really helpful. The clarity. This is not something that we think is something that's gone wrong here. It's just we're looking for information so we can help us track her down.
Are you using any particular ability when you employ
Reassurance?
that? Dr. Patan is a resident expert on the abbey. Wait here a moment. At the very least, I will get him for you, and that is all I can do. She stands up and walks off and is accompanied back to the front desk a few moments later by a sprightly and friendly-seeming man in his later years, short and with wisps of white hair. He is smoking a pipe as he walks up and talks to you and says, Madame and Monsieur, what can I help you with here?
Well, we're looking for a woman who's gone missing, who we think might have come here, maybe wanted to speak to you about something she was investigating to do with the old abbey that used to be on these grounds.
Young woman, you say? What name?
Clotilde Roudier, and I will provide the brief description as well.
Oh, Miss Roudier. Oh my, oh no. Such a wonderfully bright mind. I wish all my boys had such an interest in the ecumenical histories of Paris. Ever so polite and never a bother, though she worried she was such. Please, away from the receptionist. I don't want there to be any, people talk in a building such as this. He's already kind of leading you away. He leads you into kind of a long, very old seeming corridor with Theodore. You can especially tell the architecture here is medieval. Like this must be part of the old abbey. He's led you into like a large, like it's a cross of corridors, and it's clearly being used as the library of the lycée. The walls are full of kind of books. It's also very clearly, I should say, for everyone, not the abbey's old books. Like they're modern Belle Epoque textbooks and novels and various things you'd expect to find in a school. She had such an interest in the old abbey as well as those who dwelled in it, and further back to Saint-Geneviève, to Clovis, even onto the town of Lutetia. I always thought it fitting, Clotilde was the name of Clovis's wife. He says this, he kind of leans in specifically towards who's the most obvious non-French person here who will have heard talking? Howie. It's going to be Howie, isn't it? He kind of leans into you to tell you who Clotilde was the name of Clovis's wife. You, however, have history, and you already knew that, and you know who Clovis was, the first king of the Franks, the first French king, kind of. A very important figure in kind of mythic French history. I always wondered if that had something to do with it. The name. These things stick with us as children, don't they? Yes. I'm sorry. How can I help you?
I mean, we wanted to, if nothing else, see whether she had been here. It sounds like you met her. When was she here? What did she talk about? When did she?
She came
where
here.
Where did she go next?
She came here a few times over the last couple of years, actually. Yes. In recent months, she was asking me. I'm humbly rather an expert on these subjects. A particular interest in the procession of 1129. Do you know of it? You have history, Howie. You do not know of it. You could definitely know a bit of it if you push, but I would say he seems to be about to tell you about it. So if you want to save that push, it's up to you.
Oh no, I'm happy. He seems very happy sharing his knowledge and
he very much
being a bit happy with the knowledge that he has and being a bit smug about it. So I'm happy to let him keep talking.
Sure. Sorry, I'm literally just restarting my notes because the program I'm using, every now and then it just makes the kerning go crazy. So I'm just restarting to change that, and here we go.
I thought this was all off the dome, Matt.
Oh yeah, it's all stuff I've just completely remembered off the top of my head. That's right. I panicked briefly there because I opened an old version of my notes and was like, "It's all gone," and then realized it was the wrong version.
Yeah, you do it all off the top of your head, and if you think about it for too long, the kerning goes strange.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
my head, that's correct.
The brain
Okay,
turning.
so we're discussing the procession of 1129. Well, in 1129, during the reign of King Louis the Sixth, Paris was struck by an epidemic outbreak known as the Mal des Ardents, likely an affliction of Saint Anthony's fire. This outbreak spread terror in Paris and across France. Thousands died. Who has natural history? That would be Holly. St. Anthony's fire is an old term for ergotism, an affliction caused by consumption of fungus contaminated food. In those bleak times, Parisians found more solace in their patron saint than in secular authorities, for better or worse, mind you, and in Notre Dame de Paris. They offered supplications to St. Genevieve's relics in the abbey, but burning sickness did not come to an end until the relics were taken from the abbey and proceeded to the cathedral, which was somewhat controversial with the extremely independently minded monks of the abbey. They were afforded an independent status for centuries, you know. Well, the recovery of more than 100 people occurred after they offered adulations, attributed, of course, to her divine intervention. Pope Innocent II declared this to be a miracle and that it would be commemorated every November 26th in the Feast of the Burning Ones. Evocative. Mostly forgotten today. Yes. She was interested in this and the abbey. I gave her access when I could, naturally, during lesson or activity time, so as not to ruffle feathers. Here in the library, for the most part, of course, the tomes still here do not match the likes of those transformed to the new one. Basic school stuff, really. But I think she enjoyed the old architecture. And there's the Clovis Bell Tower, of course, still standing. She went up there a few times.
I mean, it would be wonderful if we could retrace her steps a little and you visit some of those same spots. But when was the most recent time that she was here?
Perhaps 3 weeks ago, Julien says. That would have been a couple of days before the disappearance. Well, if you think it would help, of course you can go up. My legs are not what they once were, but look here, I'll take you straight to the doorway, let you in, and wait for you when you're done. I do hope that helps.
Thank you. One thing, did she perhaps mention where she planned to visit next? Last you saw her?
I'm afraid not. She, as I said, all I knew of was her interest in the abbey, Saint Genevieve, the procession, a lot of the old ecumenical figures of the abbey as well. I don't know which ones in particular, but she seemed to have just a fascination with those times, those people. I do myself.
She was supposed to be looking for a lost artifact, an astrolabe. Did that come up at all in your discussions with her?
I'm sorry, it did not.
Can
It's been
I
really helpful, thank you.
assess honesty?
He's absolutely telling the truth. So,
Yes. Head up.
Yeah, you find yourself in front of an ancient-looking, thick wooden door that stands just off the cruciform library. Dr. Patin fiddles with a number of large iron keys before finding the right one. Inside is a long set of relatively new-looking wooden stairs, spiraling upwards around the walls of the bell tower. I'm just going to assume we are walking up. Okay, you find yourself after a few minutes and not a little bit of huffing and puffing on the upper floor, where the view, it has to be said, is stunning. While the day has become slightly overcast, there is enough bright afternoon light to see a great deal of the way across the center of Paris, beginning with the large and impressive stumbling over the French, Saint-Étienne du Mont church across from the school. Who has miscellany? That is
That
Mark.
will be me. Yep.
You happen to know that the church across the road is where the shrine of Saint Genevieve is located, with the relics of the saint that survived the revolution, during which much of her remains were burned and cast into the Seine for the crime of propagation of error.
I would regale my colleagues with this information as we look over the view.
At the center of the large,
would any of us know what propagation of error means?
Encouraging people to believe in God.
Okay.
A saint is gonna do that.
I'm guessing it was a pretty common offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the center of the floor is a colossal cast iron bell. Alex, with technology, this looks to be of relatively modern casting, as almost certainly not from the time of the Abbey itself. After pacing around the upper floor briefly, something is found. There's no need for anyone to have a specific ability. In fact, so much so that I will roll for who stumbles across it. Alex, while you're pacing around this bell tower, on one of the ledges in a slight cleft to the side where the wind has not been able to carry them away are a pair of gloves.
I will pick up the gloves, show them to the group, investigate them in whatever way I can.
Okay. So two things. First of all, John, you're the one with fashion, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The gloves look to be custom, perhaps almost a child's make, but altered to be more akin to a quite fashionable women's cut. And the second thing is, Alex, as you are handling the gloves, a piece of paper falls out from them.
I will grab this piece of paper and read it.
It is a receipt of purchase from the Librairie de... Okay, this is to me a complex French word. So, French people listening, I apologize in advance. The Librairie du Merveilleux, which I think means kind of marvels or the marvelous, in Pigalle. You know it's in Pigalle because you are familiar with it as someone with occultism, Alex Rojas. It is a kind of alchemical supply and occult bookstore. One a great deal less grand than Edmond Bailey's.
Okay. What is the note?
It's just a receipt of... It appears to be a receipt of sale for not very much, like 5 francs.
And no specified item.
No. But it has a date on it and a time.
What is the date? Does it more or less match up with when we think she was here?
Yeah.
Okay. I think these are her gloves, and I think this is her receipt, but it doesn't say what it is. Only that it's from a store of the occult, but a more or less unknown one.
Julien kind of looks over your shoulder and says, "That's in Pigalle. Could be there in half an hour."
They might have records of what it was that she bought. Worth checking out.
Yeah, it might give us more directions.
Are we done here then? Have we checked around? I mean, is everyone satisfied?
Matt, the guy mentioned that she'd been up to Bell Tower, but also to some other bits of the old Abbey.
He said the library, which is where you were.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. So we've seen the bits that she was in. Yeah. Okay.
I think, like, without retconning it or anything, the bits of the Abbey that are left are the library and the tower. So that's kind of it.
With a bit of a chill, maybe from the wind from high up, Blaze is just gonna check that there aren't any, scrawled black stars on the ceiling of the bell tower.
Sure. There are not.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Are we maybe hurrying across Paris to this shop?
Yes. Before Marie goes down the bell tower, she's going to take a quick sketch of the landscape because she doesn't get a chance to get that good a view. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Feel free to do so. Okay, you hurry across Paris in the like very gently waning light. It's still spring, but it's still, slowly dying spring afternoon, until you reach what is seemingly a great deal smaller and considerably less grand shop than the one you went to last time, run by Edmond Bailey. The library is a single room establishment dominated by a chalkboard that has several occult symbols marked on it. Alex, you recognize these as primarily Martinist in nature, which is an order of Christian esotericism, not entirely unlike other Rosicrucian traditions, but much more focused on kind of the religious nature of the mysteries. It seems more like an alchemical supply house and a bookshop, with only a few books on the shelves, but a great many jars of obscure ingredients and items, as well as even more generally accepted home remedies. Behind the counter stands a smiling man in his middle years. He has a youthful face, belied by a white and black beard, and is wearing a fez hat on his head. Greets the entry of you all warmly. Welcome, young seekers of truth. I am Lucien Chamel, student of the Master Papou. How might I assist your journey? And just in case you would be delighted to know this is a historical person, he is.
We come as part of an investigation. We have this receipt for your shop, and we were wondering if you could tell us what item it pertains to.
Okay. I'll give you a bit of extra as well, Alex. As he said that, Papou is a well-renowned occultist, mystic, and physician. He also founded the modern Martinist order. So if this guy's talking the truth, he's got some connections. Oh, well, let me take a look. I am happy to say that I remember this transaction vividly, monsieur and madame. A young lady very interested in the hidden secrets that lie beneath the City of Light. I don't know quite how she found out, but I am in possession of a map of some of these mysterious places, and she asked if she could glance at it. I, of course, was more than willing. She was very polite. But some minutes later, she returned the map overflowing with apologies, for in her enthusiasm for whatever she was seeking, she had marked the map with pencil. I didn't mind, really. It was far more functional and valuable, but she insisted on compensating me, and so here we are. The young lady isn't in trouble, is she?
She is currently missing. We would dearly love to find where she is, but...
Oh, God in heaven, how awful. And you are seeking clues to aid in the search, of course. Well, let us try to shine the light of truth on this mystery. I have the map just here. He pulls it out and lays it out on the table in front of you. Miscellany and architecture. So Alex and Steve, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Would I be able to? Well, I suppose I wait first and see what you.
Well, I will tell you this: from the penmanship and paper used, you would guess that this map he is unfurling dates from the middle of the century. More questions for me, or shall I describe it a bit first? The map itself. Sure. It is a map of tunnels underneath Paris. Many of the tunnels seem linked, from the Capuchin quarries to the catacombs and the reservoirs, and many of the passageways you do not recognize. Most of them sit south of the Seine, but there is a notable dotted line that runs from them under the river to the Ile de Cité. A fresh circle of pencil has been marked around a cross on the island. Alex, your architecture tells you that this cross is to the west of the island rather than the east, so this is unlikely to be Notre Dame that is being marked. Instead, it is likely a church you know of called Sainte-Chapelle.
Okay. Well, I was going to suggest perhaps pushing on this in order to put exactly that kind of information together. So I'm not sure.
It saved your push.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything else to be gleaned, if we've already got the point of interest. What about in terms of the markings on the map for the route? Is it sort of intuitively linkable to anything we've seen so far, or?
It's a bit rough for a start, but just by glancing over it, you don't see that hub room on here at all.
Yes. Okay.
You think the map is much more of like someone's visual guide rather than like necessarily a a really
Schematically
accurate
precise.
schematic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But presumably the main information is an interest in Sainte-Chapelle.
Yeah. Would I be able to, perhaps in that case, push my architecture skill to recall or deduce whether there would be access in Sainte-Chapelle to, I don't know if there's like some kind of underspace that you'd be able to get access
Sure.
to.
Yeah. Go ahead and push. So I say like it's a thing you have to do something with. There is not that you know of. Sainte-Chapelle is made up of like an upper and a lower chapel, but like there's no real kind of like underground to it that
There's no undercroft or type of.
No, not that you're aware of. No. Have you mentioned out loud that it's Sainte-Chapelle, by the way?
Yes. Theodore
Okay.
would relay that.
Howie, Sainte-Chapelle is the historical chapel of the French royalty and one of the only surviving buildings from the old royal palace. As this knowledge comes to your brain, Julien leans over and kind of says, Sainte-Chapelle is open to the public. Why would she need some kind of secret entrance to the church? Did she want to visit it out of hours? What purpose did she have there? You can just walk in.
But if these are tunnels, and maybe there is something else under there that isn't obvious to the way the public would go in.
Yes, my concern is more what's under the church.
Well, I don't know about any of you, but I have no particular desire to go back into those tunnels.
Nor I, yet every lead.
Things are taking us underground.
Shall we walk into the front door and see where that takes us?
Yeah, I think we start above ground if we can.
I can't believe I'm the one saying this, but much as I agree, I don't believe there's any underground access in the church itself. And, well, I suspect we won't find what we're looking for.
Well, the day is drawing on. My nerves are not fully recovered. I would much prefer that we at least scope the location out above ground before we do anything else.
And it's on the way back to the Latin Quarter.
Yeah.
I wonder
if it's a secret access, you wouldn't know about it.
Well, yes.
I wonder. Clothilda looked at this map and then climbed the bell tower. Was she trying to see something on the skyline or from above?
Maybe she was trying to. She already had the map at this point, though, right? Maybe she was trying to correlate the map with the above ground.
Marie's going to get out her sketch of the skyline, and she'll have taken a little sketch of just the tunnels from the map as well, and like pointing out some key buildings to locate it.
Most of the entrances that you can see are actually further south in Montparnasse and the surrounding arrondissement. So from the view from the bell tower, certainly the view from the bell tower towards like the Ile de Cité, which is to the north, it kind of doesn't come together. It like you can't imagine being able to see any of the entrances to this underground tunnel network from the bell tower. They're too far to the south. So like I'll give you this for free. As soon as you start to like try and connect the dots, sort of, forgive me for this comparison, but like the Goonies with the thing, you know what I mean? Like you're trying to like, you if there is a link there, it is immediately beyond.
It's not that, Yeah, well, Marie's going to reflect that to the group and just say, I'm really not sure why she was up in the bell tower then.
Maybe she was just trying to make sense of what she could see before going under.
Yes, it doesn't mean she was successful, right?
She may have had the same thoughts as you, but as Monsieur Russell says, let's go to this chapel.
Very well.
Okay. So you cross to the south, over the river to the Ile-de-Cité, the old kind of like center of Paris, like the political center of Paris, when there were kings and even occasionally popes. And you find yourself at the entrance to Sainte-Chapelle. It is a very large church with some, even from the outside, some incredibly impressive kind of like vast, towering stained glass windows. The doors are open. It's kind of the light is kind of failing, but people are still going in and out of the building. As you enter, you find yourself. It's kind of built kind of slightly on a slope. And again, this is actually with apology to anyone who knows more about Sainte-Chapelle or has been there, because I was trying to figure out the floor plan for the life of me, and it's slightly confusing. But I believe as you progress through, you find yourself in a place called the Upper Chapel, which is real big. And delightfully, I have an image of it from the 1890s. To show you. However, it is not empty like this. Instead, there are a great many people in there. And as you pass over the threshold, a sudden wash of dizziness afflicts you, but then passes. Sainte-Chapelle opens up in front of you, a dizzying array of coloured light from the stained glass windows that array the walls of the church to the great height of the vaulted ceiling. There's a choir singing at the far end, but they seem to be common and folk songs rather than hymns. As I said, there are a great many people here, but gathered to listen to the music.
It's not in Latin, is it?
No, it's in French.
My goodness, that's magnificent, isn't it?
A very impressive building.
I think Harry would be interested in just trying to see, if there's nothing that kind of jumps out here, like what are the other spaces that you can get to and kind of see as well.
The main other place that you can see signage for, in amongst kind of the people and the walls, some of which seem to have kind of relics set in the recesses. You see a kind of little passageway that's marked the lower chapel. You going to take a look in there?
Yeah, it seems like we should head there.
The lower chapel, as you can see, is a little more modest. Perhaps an earlier construction. You're not entirely sure. This has no one in it. Everyone is, other than your group, is kind of gathered in the upper chapel to listen to the music. You all walk in here and kind of like take a look around. There is one thing that is that stands out after just a moment of looking around. In a corner, marked off by rope, it looks like someone has recently attempted to pry up a flagstone, and unsuccessfully by the look of it, with a corner having broken off.
Well, I think someone else has been doing that investigation.
It's not uncommon for a lot of old churches, the saints and things buried directly under the flagstone. Sometimes it's even marked in the stones themselves. It doesn't seem to be the case here, but I wonder if they're looking for something like that, or maybe maybe there is a secret tunnel down there somewhere.
Well, I mean, be that as it may, I suspect we're not going to, any of us volunteer to continue that particular course of action, no?
Julien puts down the bag he has over his shoulder and withdraws a crowbar.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Who here
I
has
mean-
the highest athletics pool?
I think I've got
I-
5.
Currently have 6 points.
Only
in
2
athletics.
remaining.
Yeah, I've only got 3 remaining.
Yeah. I'm down to 3 actually.
Oh no, sorry. I meant in total. Like,
Oh.
what's
Oh,
your total?
5.
Not me.
Well, 4.
8.
8
Ooh.
for Mark.
Mark,
Okay.
Mark's the
Mark-
athlete.
Mark,
Mark-
Mark's
strong
Mark
boy.
muscles over here.
Mark looks
Yeah.
like the strongest. Julien looks over and says, "Someone watch the door, Monsieur Valac. Please, a little help." He steps over the rope. He seems very determined to do this.
Theodore's just going to wander off into sort of to the corner and just sort of wash his hands of this entire unseemly process.
I might join Theodore and just say, hey, if we want to explore the tunnels later, I'd much rather know that there's something we can get up to on the other end here than get stuck down below.
I will step over the rope to assist.
Okay. He kind of looks up at you as you do so, and kind of like between the two, he kind of coordinates, kind of like, if I heave down, try and get a grip on the stone. I'm sorry, I know some of the others didn't want to do this, but that bloody librarian earlier set my teeth on edge. I'm not going to let a chance go by to find this girl if we can help it.
I am ready.
There. That's caught. He pushes down on the flagstone and attempts to lever it out with your help. But because he's an NPC, it's going to be the other way around in terms of the roll. So this is going to be athletics, obviously. And what have we got? We can do some cooperation. So let's take this. You're going to be making that athletics roll. It's hard, but not kind of impossible. But you're going to get an extra 3 points from Julien.
Okay. Well, I think I will spend 4 points.
Okay. Let's give it a go.
I rolled a 3.
Okay, so that's like, what, 9, 10 total.
Yes.
10,
yes.
I think.
3.
10.
You lever up the flagstone, and as it kind of like tilts up towards you and you get a proper grip on it, the top of it kind of falls apart with a crack as it comes out of the ground, causing a small crashing noise as the pieces tumble to the floor. You pause for several seconds, but no footsteps or shouts reach you, with all the other occupants busy in the upper chapel. Below the flagstone is a void, which Julien is looking down kind of.
Do you still have that lantern, Julien?
I do, but I don't want to toss it down. Does anyone have a method of egress?
I mean, there's a rope there marking that bit off. You could maybe tie that up.
Inga, you've beaten me. I didn't even think of that. I put in a thing saying the preparedness is X if someone wants to say, maybe I have a rope on me for some reason. Bang on.
It might not be that long, like how big an area is roped
Yeah.
off, but
Or how you secure it and whatever.
I'd be a bit of a dick if you went, hey, there's a rope there, and I was like, yeah, it's not long enough.
It's decorational rope.
I'm not going to do that. Yeah, it seems pretty long, and there's a lot of architecture around to tie it to, right? There's columns and the like. So yeah, we can bypass that preparedness or athletics roll that I had lined up. So there we go. Julien lights up his lamp. Seems momentarily his hand reaches to a pocket in his jacket, and then he kind of like shakes his head as if he's being paranoid and says, "Shall I go down first?" I did rope you all into this.
Look, just before we do this, I'd just like to point out that our missing person is, by all accounts, small, not terribly strong, and inclined towards politeness. This may not be who made the first attempt here.
She might have gone in the other way, though.
Julien kind of looks around and nods and says, "You're quite right, Monsieur Russell," and withdraws the revolver from his pocket.
Yes, I didn't think I'd be the one vocalizing support for guns, but here we are.
24 hours changes a lot, Monsieur Russell. All right. He kind of like leans backwards. None of you are probably familiar with abseiling, but he seems to know what he's doing. And he sort of climbs down the rope, and you see the light kind of fade as he reaches the bottom, which is like it would have been an uncomfortable jump. That would have been a little risky, but like not entirely. No one was going to die jumping down there. You can see him in the dim light looking up and saying, "I think it's safe. Come on down."
I'll descend the rope, I guess.
Okay. Is anyone not descending?
Do we want to keep a lookout? Make sure no one removes this rope. Nothing bad happens up here.
Maybe not a bad idea.
Check when the church closes,
Yeah, Marie might stay up here, if only because trying to descend down a small hole in what is probably a dress, because I'm not sure that 1890s fashion has caught up to the idea of women wearing trousers yet.
Sure.
She's probably going to stay up, just in case anyone comes nosying around.
Sure. Okay.
Howie might stay with her, I think.
Fair enough. Just feeling a bit
Yeah.
underground.
Not good vibes.
Underground wary. No, yeah.
And there's a good reason to be gallant here in staying with Marie rather than just staying on my own. Being scared.
Yes.
I'll stay with the damsel, of course.
Absolutely.
It's definitely the other way around, but yeah, 100%.
It's a burden you're willing to shoulder. Yeah.
So, the rest of you descend down. The space around you feels cold and dry, and there's a spark as Lucien lights a candle from his lamp and kind of places it on the floor near the rope. You find yourself in a subterranean vault of some kind, undecorated and covered in a light layer of dust. In the walls are alcoves, and in the alcoves are what appear to be very basic block-like sarcophagi of grey stone. They have names written on the side of them, though some seem to be illegible. On pacing out the middling-sized chamber more, a passageway can be found leading off. As soon as it leaves the room, the walls become chipped limestone, similar but slightly distinct to that found in the quarries.
And is there no sign of any disturbance in the dust? It all looks pristine and untouched, or?
No. There is disturbance in the dust from the tunnel leading further on. You can trace the disturbances in the dust across the room to a sarcophagus where the dust on that and the floor around it is disturbed considerably. The name on the side of the sarcophagus is Abbot Guiscard de Carcassonne.
That's the abbot who created the astrolabe, and someone's been poking about in a most untoward fashion.
Perhaps the astrolabe was back with him.
How big would such an item be?
Oh, you've got technology, right? They can range in size. I mean, they're not a common item. They can range in size from kind of like a more handheld object to like something that would need mounting, like a large globe,
Yeah.
So you don't know. Julien kind of sets the lantern to one side on a different alcove and says, "Well, I suppose we're going to do this, aren't we?"
The tracks stop here. I'll take it, Matt. They don't.
They stop here.
Does the it's like a sarcophagus.
Mm-hmm.
Is the lid removed, or is it just?
It is not removed, but it looks removable.
Oh boy! But based on the disturbance in the dust, does it look like that's what they were trying to do? It makes sense that that's.
You can't really tell from the, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
dust gone from the lot of the sarcophagus, from the top
Right.
of the sarcophagus. Yeah.
Okay.
Julien has taken his jacket off and like hung it to one side and is glancing over at again those of you who look a little heftier than the others.
Well, I can't say I've ever done this before. I will also remove my jacket and.
Okay. Who is taking the lead on this? It is going to be an athletics roll, but I'm happy for like up to 4 people to participate, and one of them is going to be Julien.
Alex will help, but I think Mark is probably best.
Well, I have 2 points left, so I will certainly need some assistance. I think based on my dice rolls earlier.
Theodore will pitch in, I think.
Okay, maybe Blaze can hold the lantern then. Okay. So who is going to take the lead on it? I'll tell you what the difference is. When a group of characters acts in concert to perform a task together, they designate one to take the lead. That character makes a test, spending any number of their own pool points towards the task as usual. All of the characters pay 1 point from their relevant pools in order to gain the benefit of the leader's act. Oh no, that's piggybacking. These points are not added to the... Oh, hang on. No, that doesn't really work. It's cooperation, really. And it says that there's 2 characters, but I think this is going to be... Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. But we do need someone to nominate themselves as the person primarily doing it.
Well, I can spend 2 points. I'm happy to lead if no one else can.
So the way this works is that other people's spend is given to Mark's roll, but with a -1 to them.
Oh.
So 1 more point than they spend is sacrificed, if you see what I mean.
So there's no point just spending 1. Okay.
No. It's 1 all you've got left.
I have 2. I was just, banking for boat-related.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're going to get 2 points from Julien, Mark. Sounds like you're getting 1 point from Theodore. Alex, how many points from you? So
Alex has 2 and will spend 2, so I guess you get another
1 from that, and then however many points you are spending, Mark, and then make the roll.
Okay, so sorry, run that by me once more.
So you are getting 4 points from other people.
Okay,
you can add that to your roll.
Right. I'll spend a point, make it 5. I rolled 3, so that's 8.
Okay. Stone grates softly against stone as the lid of the sarcophagus moves aside, and Blaze raises the lantern to afford a better look. Inside are the remains of 2 individuals, posed and dressed very differently. In repose in the center in a more traditional manner are the cracked and ancient-looking bones of a tall individual. They are clad in the greatly decomposed robe of a medieval monk, a brown cloth that has survived remarkably well. In their hands is clutched some form of complicated-looking metal curio, composed of wheels and clockwork with a polished gold face. Next to them, skeletal arms draped across their waist as if they were a supplicant or a doting child, is another conglomeration of bones. The skull tilts upwards as if gazing in bliss at the face of the abbot. They look to be of a similar age and state of decay, but are quite diminutive in stature. They also wear clothes that are recognizable in defiance of centuries of slow decay. But where the first body wore robes, this second wears the strikingly fashionable dress of a modern Parisian woman. That's our 3rd episode. So, comments and questions in chat, please. We love to see them. We'll have a little natter before we address those between members of our crew as well. I'll answer some questions and talk about various things in the episode. But in the meantime, we do blurb stuff. Down below, there's a bunch of links. Links to the various sites we stream on, our social media, our Patreon, our Discord, our merch store, all the stuff you might expect. Go check them out, please. We also run a number of weekly and fortnightly series here on Telling Tales. Mondays is currently alternating between We Deal in Lead and Warhammer. The finales of both of those are coming up in the next couple of weeks. Then in a few weeks, we're going to be starting a real long campaign, Call of Cthulhu, Masks of Nyarlathotep. We're looking forward to it. Johnny is running it. He's the Call of Cthulhu guy in these parts. So it's going to be a fun time. And by that, I mean terrifying, but also fun. Wednesdays is Simbaroom. It's our longest running kind of flagship campaign, he says egotistically. Check that out if you haven't already. There is, at this point, literal years of content of that to catch up on if that's your thing. Lovely dark fantasy from Free League. And Thursdays is currently Yellow King. It's going to start alternating next week. Cause it's already fortnightly, it's going to start alternating with our first recorded series of Delta Green, more modern cosmic horror stuff. As I said, it's going to be our first experiment in recorded stuff. It'll still be streamed live, but it won't be live. You know what I mean. And that is also the first stuff from Steve as GM on the channel. So go support Steve. Vote for Steve. That's a thematic today. Yeah, all of us are running this and not looking at the news. And if you're at all familiar with, the UK, you will know that today is general election day. So it's all good.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this instead of all of the political, following the election cycle stuff.
It's all right. It'll literally all just be pundits saying how even though Labour are clearly going to win, they might not, just so you don't change the channel. So it's fine. This is more entertaining. Anyway, that's nothing to do with this. Delta Green is coming. We also run one-shots on a semi-regular basis. The next one of those, Saturday, the 20th of July, we'll be revisiting, and I'll wave it at you, Cyborg, post-apocalyptic cyberpunk thing from Stockholm Cartel. It's really fun. The 3 players for that are all on this stream as well. We've got Holly, we've got John, we've got Steve. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So there we go. Saturday, 20th of July. Please join us. Now, before we go to comments and questions from the chat, as is traditional now in Yellow King, comments and questions from the crew, please. Yeah.
Well, I thought
before we get into the super scary stuff,
Sure.
the revolver safety thing. So safeties existed, but revolvers don't typically have them. It'd be quite uncommon for them to have one.
Fair enough.
And apparently the most popular type of revolver of the time was the Colt single action army revolver, and that definitely didn't have a safety. But it does have a hammer that would need to be cocked, so it wouldn't just sort of go.
Then that is the thing that he was doing. He absolutely would have had a Colt army revolver. Yeah.
I know nothing about guns. That is just Google. So,
I know a weird bit about the Colt because of the reputation of it and because of how it kind of changed modern warfare to a certain degree. And I also know something about it because there is wonderful weirdness associated with the family who created the Colt gun, including a John.
Nope, you go ahead.
I think it's called the House of 1,000 Hammers, or that's one of the nicknames for it. And it is basically the guy. I'm paraphrasing here. I might be getting some of the details wrong, but I believe the guy who invented the Colt kind of went nuts, possibly as a result of having invented a weapon that killed lots and lots of people. And they had a family house that has stairs that go nowhere and random weird rooms. And it is John, please say.
I know about this. Okay, so he did invent the Colt, or I think his family invented the Colt.
Yeah.
The person who made the house was actually his widow.
Right.
And there's sort of 2 sides to the story. Either that she went crazy and went into spiritualism and was haunted by the ghosts of and all the stuff, or which is the story that the actual museum of the house is sort of based around. Or there is also the theory that she's kind of just an eccentric and she was just a woman who was really into architecture at a time where it was weird
Sure.
for women to be interested in architecture, and was very rich, and basically just was like, I think I might build another stairway to see if there's a new way to do a stairway.
As Don't Kick Food said, the Winchester House, so it actually might not be cult.
It's called Winchester.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it was the Winchester company that made the cult.
Right. Okay.
Added to the fact that it is in California, where there are a lot of earthquakes, and it's entirely possible that there was an earthquake that literally just sort of misaligned the entire house. So all
Sure.
of the stairways and the doors may have led somewhere at some point, and now they just don't.
Sure, but it's still cool to think about.
It's really cool.
Not the case.
Both sides of the story are really cool. And I'm just really excited that I used to.
Your explosion of excitement there was beautiful. That was just wonderful. I loved it.
Sure. Yeah. But anyway, that's beside the point. The conflict. Okay. Any other questions or like whatever from this session? Yeah.
Is
I'd love
Julian
this
based
stuff.
on a real person?
No. Julien is one of the very few non-factual NPCs in the book. He's in the book, though. I didn't create him. Although he is semi-based on another character from a Robert Chambers story called I think it's called The Tracer of Lost Persons. That isn't really cosmic horror, but there's another character who is part of the Keen, like has a PI company called whatever it is, Keen and Company. And Julien, I think the writer has put them in Yellow King as like a interesting like employee that's like a relation that like is related to those other short stories. But no, he's a fictional NPC that I decided to make use of.
I'm curious about how, because we've now encountered a couple of times where like the employer is like looking for their lost employee. I'm just like curious about how was this a common thing? Like, were employers that interested in their employees at this time? Like, is that
a little bit? Yeah, because common authorities, unless someone had a family had money, didn't really give a shit. So it was kind of like up to like a more like widespread notion. It's like it takes a village, right? It like more community notions in historical settings. I'm not saying it's something that's super common happened, but like, yeah, it's more common. It would either be their family or like their employers who would look for a missing person rather than the actual authorities.
I guess with this one as well, like I know I kind of got the impression they were less concerned about the missing girl and more about the stuff that she was investigating. Like they didn't want to lose the thread of.
I think that might be it. Also, it's where like I don't think the hospital got you to search for Georges Voulet. I think it was just like he's connected to the paintings. Let's look for him. But in this case, yeah, it was explicitly the library. But yeah,
I can imagine.
It's the second body we found that seems to have died a long time ago that we know can't have died a long time ago.
I don't know what you mean.
No, that seems like conjecture. Yeah, no, it seems like employers would probably only care if they had a vested interest in the work that was being done, not being disrupted or lost, or information of a sensitive nature, etc., being contaminated, or if they'd invested a lot in the skill set of the person,
or if sometimes if they felt they had a social duty to do it, like you could imagine perhaps a school doing it, or something else like that.
But again, more of a sort of arse covering thing where it's like they will fall under scrutiny, not a sort of, oh, I care about this person.
But just an interesting thing, a time when I can imagine working conditions generally will be very bad, but that equally there's sort of a more like communal nature to society in some ways that allows for this sort of thing.
Well, because there has to be, because anytime you rewind the survival clock to something more close to subsistence existence, people have to be part of a community because that's what works. Sorry, I'm letting my politics show, but that is what works. So people have to do that. I think like it's worth mentioning though, like we say working conditions were worse. It's arguable that in what we'd call now white collar employment, working conditions were considerably better than they are now, in that prescribed hours were shorter and you would not be expected to do weekend working and things like this in certain circumstances. Yeah, you wouldn't get the same benefits and stuff as well. But also, like, if you worked in, an office doing something, it's unlikely that you would have a worse working life considerably than you had now. But of course, absolutely, if you were working labor-based positions, yeah, generally speaking, they were quite a bit worse. Any other questions from the crew?
I don't know about questions, but like the tunnels bit, like that was so fucking creepy. Like that was awful. It was so scary and just nasty, and fucking excellent job. Well done.
Good.
That was
And you got the best
horrible.
Yeah. I genuinely, like, for a moment, you were doing some really good acting there, and I was genuinely like, oh my god, Inga genuinely looks like she's gonna start crying. And for a moment,
I had like a little dread come over me when you describe it. I was like, I'm just gonna let this run. I'm gonna let this run. I'm gonna let this go over my body.
Let it do it. Yeah, no, it was great. No, for a moment I was like, oh no, and then I was like, yeah. So there we go. Any other like comments or questions about various like bits we liked, or like cool bits we didn't like, or like anything else before we delve into the world of chat?
I need to check whether my dread disappears, whether it's one of the ones that disappear at the end of the year.
It does. If it doesn't, it's marked. There's a keyword that it has, and I can't remember if it's persistent or persisting or something like that. So yeah, none of them had that. So all your cards disappear before the next session. Yeah,
that was a rough one.
Yeah, it was for you. Yeah, you had some bad luck there.
Yeah, I finished that with like no points left in composure or athletics.
But that's happening again. These things are going to escalate, and that shows that my calibrations are correct in a change to my usual Simbaroom campaigning. My calibrations of these things are seem pretty decent.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting coming up with reasons to continue investigating when we keep finding bodies and horrid things happen. We are working through the phobias at a rate of knots.
Yeah,
water, darkness, claustrophobia.
I am wondering at what point, how many corpses do we need to discover or indeed basically grave rob before the party starts to think, maybe this is we're a little bit in over our
But don't worry, I there is a flow to this campaign, and I have thought about the old "why would you not just walk away" thing. I've thought about it.
I was really thinking about that for Howie as well, because especially after Radon in the last one had made a point of saying, don't obsess with it, get it out of your head, try and get as far away from that as you can. Like there was definitely a bit of like I think there was definitely like a fair like tension around it's really hard to say stop thinking about it and actually stop thinking about it. But I was definitely like, when the guy came through, I was like, right, like the call to adventure thing is totally I have to see this as a look, this is just going to keep coming back unless we do something about it. And Howie is quite an action oriented guy typically, so I was like, that's definitely the thing here. But like there could well be a limit. Like, holy shit, this stuff is not nice.
Yeah.
Oriented that you were like, don't worry, I'll stay with the dance. It was entirely. It made a complete sense though, given what you've just seen. It's like if it did my character, I think the same thing. You just would.
It was, and it was like it was really like this. There's a couple of things I wanted to mention off this. But first of all, I did love that, like, I'll stay and protect you, madame, that was expressed in a very kind of like, and if it makes you feel better, you can cuddle, you can hold me, sort of way, which I really enjoyed. But there was a couple of other things. First, a question I want to ask, because obviously, like, and I definitely understand why you said it, because like it was what was going through Howie's mind in the things of like the figure in Radon's painting and stuff like that. Who do you think you saw in the tunnels now? Do you still think it was the figure in the painting? Do you think it was the Yellow King?
Oh, I guess it could be the abbot guy. Is that because it was robes, right? Rather than
it was, but I did describe. It was very reminiscent of a monk's robes. I'll just put it there.
Right,
but of course, Howie does not see the body in the sarcophagus. So
no, that's true.
but I will.
That's a good point.
The
Because
description.
that is actually, for those of you interested in kind of like going back and like trying to piece together things that happened that maybe aren't on screen, I'll just say that a lot of these things are thought through, and like little bits and pieces might give you clues to maybe what happened.
I was wondering. Yeah, I didn't have chance in the shop, the Mavea, alchemical shop.
The Library of Marvels.
Yes. I was wondering at the time whether there was a possible link with alchemical compounds or symbols with Georges. So
maybe,
that's in the back of my mind.
Maybe he had Martinist symbols there. He had Martinist connections, and Martinism is kind of a form of Rosicrucianism, which the symbols that Alex recommend. Maybe, who knows? But yeah, all I will say is I've thought about the meta thing and keeping you in the plot, and like how that would feel rational and not necessary, or not even maybe rational, but like maybe a compelling reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the things is that like running Theodore it's always been a sort of case of the initial stance being, well, this is just nonsense, isn't it? This is superstitious, jumping at shadows. There's a rational explanation, yada yada. But I think nonetheless, it's still compelling for the anchor to be the other side of that coin, which is that Theodore wants answers, right? He wants a practicable explanation.
Yeah, if he thinks there is an explanation, he needs to prove it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
if only to himself,
And I think also there's a certain amount of thing of like, oh well, a rational person would leave at this point, and it's like, well, as this goes on, you're going to become less and less rational, and there's almost a kind of like occult sunk cost fallacy. Like you will need to know, like by the you become Mulder, right? Like that, like you become obsessed to the point of like you leaving won't even occur to you because you're so in it.
Or perhaps in that example, maybe Scully as the sort of...
Scully's the better example. Like after the seasons change and she's still there because now she needs to know. The other thing I would note is that final thing, that the discovery in the sarcophagus had an alternate version. And it was an alternate version if the person who encountered the robed figure in the tunnels had failed the role.
I was going to say, like, I don't know if you can tell us this or not, but like, I'm desperate to know what would have happened if Howie had reached out.
If Howie had reached out, then Howie would not have emerged from the tunnels.
Yeah.
Howie would
have been in the sarcophagus.
Howie would have been a third, still living, and in a kind of coma, a sleep coma state in the sarcophagus, slightly curled up. And as you opened it, he would have slowly blinked and opened his eyes.
Oh my God, that is
as if waking from slumber.
From a nice dream.
And that would have been the ending.
God.
I kind of wish you'd reached out now.
I kind of wanted it because more horror, but it also would have meant that whoever, in this case, Inga rolled the lowest, but it also meant that whoever it would have been would have missed. Like you would have been sat there for like nearly 2 hours, like as we went over the rest.
And
of it.
how many cards would you have gotten for that? That's the question.
Right, but they wouldn't have remembered anything.
Fair.
So,
well,
like,
will just be issued SCP style amnestics as we go to keep the cards slow.
But yeah, that's it. And on that note, as I've made Inga feel terrible again, let's have some chats, comments, and questions, please, John. Because as usual, this has run long. I'm really enjoying how they do run long, I have to confess. Chicken in the Cage. Shout out to Inga for a role play at this moment. It was genuinely great. And it's stuff like that why I always kind of fight to have Inga in my games. I love everyone else as well, I should say. But I'm not picking favorites. Next.
I would just like to say, I have no idea what the context of this next comment was.
Sure. Don't kick food. There's no rule in the book that a cat can't play RPGs. I think it was when the cat was causing a kerfuffle and trying to climb on me and stuff. I think Don't Kick Food was standing up for the cat, which I appreciate and the cat appreciates. But believe you me, that cat gets all the attention.
Can't have been my cat because mine slept for basically the whole thing.
He has
That
a
was
bottomless
adorable.
pit in his heart for attention from me. And sometimes to live my life, doors must be closed for a couple of hours. Next. Dude's got pockets full of guns. You sure he's from Martinique and not the US? I mean, I am, because that's where it's from. But yeah, point taken. Yes.
It sort of immediately gave me this kind of Western gunslinger type vibe to the guy. It's just like this long flowing coat, and it's just revolvers everywhere.
Sure. He's like, I want to paint him as like he's a guy who knows what he's doing in this business. So like, you know, and if you're in the tracing lost persons business, you probably need a gun.
Or two.
Does anyone, here's an interesting thing, because they were army revolvers. Does anyone know why someone of the time period might carry two guns instead of one?
It's because they took so long to
Slow load.
reload.
Yeah, slow to
It's
reload.
quicker to throw one away and draw
Yeah.
the other one than it is to reload. Yeah, absolutely. Inga, you don't get into a fight at 10 a.m. about the relative historical success of France and England's military history without a few drinks. No, absolutely not. And speaking as someone English with a fair amount of knowledge of history and archaeology and all these things, despite the global reputation, the answer is France. France wins. France wins.
Which is something that I did know, and like not enough about the specifics to like call on specific like examples and stuff. I did know that, and so I thought it was just funny,
Yeah.
especially we're in France, and he's American, so didn't have a vested interest. It was totally just a way
Sure.
to dig at Theodore. I was
Although-
just like, this
Yeah,
is
and
nothing.
also like Americans at the time would have been greatly in favor of France's military, and France
Yeah.
in general as a military ally that arguably, don't come at me, Americans, arguably, I'm just talking arguable facts. Arguably, France is what allowed America to win the Revolutionary War through the donation of funds and military access, and also occupying England.
If that argument had gone on longer, that would have come up as like one of the examples. I think would have been like, hey, they basically helped us, defeat you guys,
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
no,
100%.
like because
So-
I was uncertain whether there was if it was going to proceed, and I was going to have to come up with a comeback, and I was like, I kind of can't because it would be.
Especially at this,
It's like,
this
how do I
period of
put myself
history.
into? And I was like, how
Yeah.
patriotic is Theodore really? Like he's
Yeah,
a
it's-
stuffy guy, but I don't think he's like.
How much do you want to
No.
get into a fight in a French bar
Exactly.
about how the English are better than
Yeah.
France? in
Exactly.
war as
It's like
well?
And then you're
I
gonna
think
bring
even
up-
if he had disagreed intensely, his tact would have led him to not
Yeah,
want to.
and then you're going to bring up historical stuff, and that's a nightmare because then Matt starts fucking weighing in on it.
Exactly.
Well, actually, like,
Yeah.
it's an interesting too. But one, I want to reference a thing in a Warren Ellis comic called Cressy, which is very good. This kind of postmodern take on that battle and like medieval sort of battle history in general and the archers and stuff like that. But the character in that who is constantly breaking the fourth wall and talking to you as like the modern reader mentions how it's kind of weird that like this kind of like notion, oh, France, they don't win, well, they can't win, blah blah blah, and it kind of comes from their history of being invaded in the 20th century. But it would have been a bizarre thing to hear as someone in the medieval period where France were like the military boogeymen of Europe. They fucked everyone up all the time. And it's just jarring for them to think about that. And also I would mention, if we're going to say England got the top over France on anything in history, probably the 100 Years' War, which we kind of won, but then fucked away politically by dying inconveniently of diarrhea. That's literally what happened with Henry V. But on the other hand, it did take us 100 years. So, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I feel like France's military has historically been way stronger than the British, other than a brief period of time where Britain min-maxed their archery skill.
Yeah, exactly. We made a lot of Welshmen incredibly buff on their top halves, and then we won. So
Yeah, we
maybe
also
maybe that
had
can work now.
we also had a bit of time where we had really good boats, primarily because we cut down all of our good trees,
All of our
and then they
trees.
sank them all.
All of our trees. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
This makes me want to talk about the English Armada, which had the exact same fate as the Spanish Armada but
Yeah.
I won't. Because we're already talking about other stuff. Next comment, please.
Just as it wasn't one of my starred ones, but this is a good one to bring up. There is also the fact that
Yeah.
a lot of
Lafayette, yep.
the veterans who fought in the American Revolution were veterans because they'd fought in the French Revolution. So there was a lot of experienced French military people.
And General Lafayette responsible for advising and being directly responsible for a great many of the military victories of the Revolutionary War. Absolutely. Next. Steve, your call to adventure is important. Please hold. Please hold while we have a group chat about these things. No, like when I hurry you along, I'm not like criticizing. It's obviously great. It's just because of the measured pace of these episodes. I am aware that people probably want to get to bed before midnight, or at least not.
We just need a secret sign that you can, like a, I don't know what,
like an applause sign, but for get the fuck on with it.
Yeah.
I'll just do this.
yeah.
That would work. That would work.
Like an impatient Parisian theatre manager or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's thematic.
You have admin ability, so you can just mute us whenever you
I'll
want.
just mute you all and go.
Just start
Like, that's it now.
So...
And then they left the pub.
You're dead. You're dead.
You're mad. You're dead. Next. Chicken in the Cage. Like, I love this comment. I saw this comment as it happened. I love it. Again, it's thrilling to watch you guys explore the Bibliothèque Sainte-Geneviève, in which I spent numerous hours studying, and the Lycée Henri Quatre, I did my class preparatoire. Again, I apologize for my pronunciation, which I think is sort of acceptable for an Englishman, but not great. In the Lycée Louis le Grand, the grand rival to the lycée we spent time in. So, of course, I'll be delighted when it bursts into flames at the end of this episode. I'm sorry, I didn't destroy it. I even made one of the teachers there quite a sympathetic figure. So I apologize deeply.
Yeah, when we first got to the receptionist person, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be uphill, isn't it? And then it was all fine. We got a very helpful person.
Yeah, you got a couple of really, like, I wanted to balance out the librarian because I was writing him going, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, and also, like, that was when I wanted, and I think it worked. That's when I wanted you to turn around on Julien. Because obviously there'd been all this, what's this guy's fucking deal?
Like, I saw that he cared, actually.
He clearly cared about Clotilda and finding her. That's when I wanted you to kind of turn on him, like reverse turn on. That was his like face turn, right? A little bit where I wanted you to like go, these guys are like kind of on the level, and seems to have like quite noble.
I love that you did say that he did think we might be suspects when he took us down there originally, because I was like, I bloody knew it.
Sure.
I knew it. Don't tell the cops anything.
I was like, there's no way that you approach this group of people and aren't keeping one eye on us, kind of thing. Because like Theodore's been saying as much the whole time. You're like, look, this doesn't look great, you know?
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, love that comment, Chicken in the Cage. Thank you so much. It's great to hear, because obviously one of my primary concerns is doing Paris dirty, right? And France and French and all these things. So I'm glad I'm doing all right today. Next. John, I can imagine some Parisian vampires who'd love it in here. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Nice Interview with the Vampire reference to wrap us up. Cool.
Excuse
there
me,
we go.
That was a Vampire Lestat reference.
Oh.
Is it?
Yeah.
They're in Interview with the Vampire.
Technically correct.
They absolutely are. Armand is in Interview with the Vampire, as is Santiago is the other one, right? Yeah, and the Theatre des Vampires, which is the most imaginative thing that Anne Rice ever thought of. I'm not a big Anne Rice fan, sorry.
Fair.
I was going to say something harsh but fair about Anne Rice's writing, but I'll leave it for off stream. There we go. Thank you so much to everyone watching. Thank you to my wonderful crew who have stayed late yet again for one of these streams that I am really enjoying, and I hope they are too. And we will see you in 2 weeks' time for more Yellow King. And catch the recorded stream next week of Delta Green. There we go. Take care and stay safe, people. See you soon. Good.